meeting to order yet?
No, that's all right. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's almost 6:30. Just to check here, we've got Bill, Paul's here, Ed's here, Charlie, Nancy, Michelle, Kim, Denise, and Emily.
Michelle's not here.
Michelle's the only
Yeah,
one.
she,
Oh, that's right, sorry,
she'd
sorry.
be a little late. Saw that.
Okay, and then Frank is, there he is.
Here. Who needs copies of the town stuff?
I will take one of these.
Get the, is
Sent
it changed
electronically.
these? But it's all within this one.
The one they sent electronically today,
No, from the first version.
Yes.
modification of library. I'm
That's the
sorry.
only change. The town clerk stuff was added in that.
It is, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Does
sure
everybody who
I
needs
missed it.
have an agenda? I made enough.
Yeah.
Did you get the agenda, Emily? I did not send it around, sorry.
Just so you know, they told me there's- I know, I'm joking.
So, not
After people are voting, so she must.
all right, I think we'll have the town clerk
Good.
here.
Can I ask you a question? I got an update on the school. When I asked why the number of students and the amount that you pay for a student didn't come up to the high school level for the cost, the reason why is summer special ed. I was talking to Katie before the school board the day after. And
Okay.
she said that she forgot about, but that's the reason why, when I brought the question up, it's lower.
Okay. So we'll skip over the town clerk and go right to the highway department presentation. If you guys want to come up and, folks, welcome to have a seat.
And they're on the couch and you can sit. Okay, well,
Yes. Like half
It's the same.
an- It's in there, yes. Page 6.
And the bottom.
So page 6 of the budget.
On the bottom.
It starts on the bottom.
Do you have another budget?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Can I get one too?
Yep.
One and six?
One more.
There's one more that goes with that.
Thank you.
You guys want to give a brief presentation first, or would you like us to jump into questions, or
Go into the questions.
go into questions?
I'll be the first one.
Who's going first? Nancy?
I was asking about the salt, because I noticed on here that you've only spent 14,000. How up to date is this on the expenditures?
Q3.
Salt.
Sorry, Denise looked at me. It's, they're quarter three expenses. That line is nearly expended.
Okay. Alrighty.
And the road resurfacing, you spent 288 out of the 325?
Yes.
How do you, can you tell me how, on your salary increase, it's a 4% change, but it's a 2% across the board? The salary for the road agent,
Yeah.
says it's a 4% change, but it's a 2% across the board. How does that work?
I can address that. Middle of 2018, they were given a merit increase, and then they're getting a 2% next year.
How do you do merit increases if you don't have a performance review system?
It was based on the cost savings that they save the town by doing work themselves and versus contracting it out.
You mentioned that. So, but still 4% of, it's still 4%. So the current budget is 52,449. Right,
With the adjustment.
Road agents. Yes,
so 2% of that is 1,048. Wouldn't it be 2% of 52,449?
mm-hmm.
So that would be 1,000 more. 1,048, but you have 2,060.
You want to help me on that one?
I'm not sure what's stated in the report. He was hired at 52. The select board gave him a $1,000 increase. That was for a merit increase at that time. But the board felt that that did not preclude them from any any across-the-board COLA increase that anybody else was entitled to for next year. So yes, it's more than 2% because it's 2% of what they're receiving now and not 2% of what the budgeted amount was for 2018.
So the current
Oh.
revised budget is not correct then? 52,449 is not correct? So it would be 53.
Yes, his,
Okay.
so his annualized amount is 53, but it happened halfway through the year. So they gave him what would equal $1,000 over a year, but it happened midway, so that's why the budget
So-
figure would say that.
So it's 500.
I'm gonna ask that she help me, and our administrator
So
help
you
me,
meant 50.
they should need to have further conversation.
Yeah, does anyone object to having Caroline speak up
No.
when?
No.
Sorry. Good, so please.
Okay. So the current revised budget of 52,449 is not correct. It's really 53,000 right now that you're anticipating.
If he were not to get an increase, but he were to receive his current salary annualized, that would equal 53. But his budgeted amount for 2018 was 52. So it's a revised amount in that it happened midway through. But if he were to not receive a COLA increase for next year, then the budgeted amount would be 53 because he received what was intended to be a $1,000 increase over a full year.
So really, the revised budget should be 53, because you did 2% on that, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the intent was a 2% increase on the 53. That was the intent for it.
Okay.
Right, but the 2% of 53,000 is $1,060.
Then you add the 1,000 that they added.
But we already added the 449, so we're adding another another
For
1,000
no,
plus.
For next year, it'll be a full 1,000.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, I was going on the 53, which is what it would have been at the beginning of the year if you'd have gotten it the whole year.
Oh, right.
So there's still
That's the-
$1,000.
But that's the
The 4%
increase,
is from the 52,
the dollar change.
Right.
but it's still off by $20. It should be 2,080
If you did 4%.
of 52.
But no, it would be 4% on the revised budget. Wouldn't it?
But should the default budget number be the
Yeah,
53
so
now?
I got 20.
No.
You can
You
only
can't
do
do
what
that.
was
It would be 52.
approved last
It's
year,
already given to them?
but it's not what was in the approved budget
It's the
of last
previous
year.
year's budget
Right.
Another line.
plus
No, that's not
any
true.
contractual obligations,
Right.
less any one-time expenditures. So because there was no contract associated with that increase, the default is still 52.
Yeah.
It's a one-time expenditure, is that?
Well, no, it's not a one-time expenditure, it's just that it's not a contractual obligation.
Mhm.
Or, there's this funny definition of what is a contractual obligation, but those things have been, it's typically not what one would put in a default budget. You're back to the original.
So from year over year, it's a 4% increase to that line.
Yes, totally. Based on what we're giving him this year versus what we gave him, what he had and what we gave him in the summertime. It will be a total of 4%.
And same comment on the following line, so it's an 11.8% increase year over year for the full-time staff line as well.
The difference in that line is that there's overtime budgeted, so it's not just a percentage on straight time.
Do you know about how many hours of overtime that is?
I believe it was budgeted for 130.
Is
I could be wrong about that, but that's the number that's in mind.
And how many staff members is that for?
One.
Got a quick question. Is the select board gonna give, job descriptions for everybody in town?
What I'd like to do is, because we have a lot to cover tonight, I'd like to hold it to budget things if we could. So, I mean, it's interesting, but let's try and keep it to the budget, because otherwise we're gonna get dull midnight.
You know, I complain year over year, we get these across-the-board increases, and now we're talking 10, 20, 30%. We have no job descriptions and no performance reviews. So I'm gonna continue to complain about that as long as I'm on the budget committee. The departments who are doing this have much less impactful increases in their salary requests. The police department, you know, they're down 1.3%, you know.
I understand.
George, is there anything you wanna highlight for them, or?
Road maintenance. You got 350,000. What do you plan on doing with that?
The plan is to finish Heritage Drive. And then grind from Bear Road to the Woodlands on Sligo. And then, if there's money available, to overlay the three projects.
At this point, have you gone out for bids or anything, or?
No
for
bids yet.
pricing?
No.
This is based on just experience?
Based on pricing of last year's materials
Yeah.
and what we ran into down in the Woodlands, we felt it would be, we should raise it up to about 25,000. I mean, we did get a couple other projects done with the money we had in the road budget this year that we did in-house, some big patches, and we repaired in front of the fire station. I have a list of the projects we did paving. We did in-house paving 85 tons of hot top, so if anyone wants a copy of what we've done, I can pass that around.
Sure. So in estimating the likely expense to do what you want to do, are you basing it on the length of roadway, comparing that to the length of roadway? that
There's
you're
gonna be
driving?
some considerable work that has to be done in the section of Sligo Road, where that road has, there's no gravel under that road either. And we're gonna have to do shoulder work and everything there to keep the water out from running down the road and picking up the road, so there's gonna be more money involved there before we're done.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have no bids yet. I've asked for quotes on Pike and other things, but I'm gonna get some different companies to give us some good quotes so we can do it, you know, put it out the bid. That'd be the fairest way to do it.
Bill?
Good.
Despite these
increases for salary, you're still looking at a 5.4% decrease in your budget for next year? Do I read that right?
It's 11.7 increase.
That's street lighting.
Right below road maintenance and resurfacing.
Okay, I guess I'm not reading the right breakout of this.
That would be the transfer station section.
It's on page
Okay,
7.
yeah, I got it.
Bill.
I see. So there's no total for just highway?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
all
under-
right.
It's
But you don't-
539,
Okay, got it.
595, 626.
It's a $62,419 increase.
Did I read it?
$16,000 of it is salaries and benefits.
8 point or 11 point?
George, how come there's nothing in safety equipment? Did it just get in another line? Is that the top of the
950's
page?
in there for
Yeah,
safety
950.
equipment.
I know, but they haven't used any.
No, that's not safety shoes, it's just, they have been bought, the shoes have been bought. They just haven't showed up in the recent, they've been bought
So this is the
recently.
Q3
We haven't gotten anything since Q3.
expenditure at this point, so what's on here is Q3, so if there's left over, it could have been spent in the time between the end of Q3 and today.
Can you talk about why uniforms have gone up almost 500%?
Yeah, we've added uniforms to the crew at the transfer station.
So this year you spent $133, and this next year you're proposing $1,600?
If you look at the budget, the uniforms were in the transfer station account. Why it was that way before I came, I have no idea. The cost of uniforms is gonna be split between the two departments. But the whole amount was in the transfer station account originally. And it looked like, and that's why this looks like such a big increase in the highway department. We're splitting the total amount between the two departments.
Overall, is there an increase?
Yeah, 42, it's 4250 between the two departments now. And it was 2,100 so far this year.
Yeah, and the uniform, prior to, the summer, the uniforms weren't being used, so there was the cleaning charges and stuff out there. When the other guys came on board, they started wearing uniforms, getting them cleaned. So,
We also have taken up insurance on our uniforms
Right.
for next year, because if you damage it with chemical fluids, or it gets ripped or something, you have to buy the uniform at full rate. It was cheaper to have the insurance on it than it was to
Right.
pay for a damaged
you're paying
uniform.
$50 some odd dollars a shirt when you can buy it at Walmart at 20.
Mhm.
So for the transfer station, it went up 12.5%, and for the highway department, it went up almost 500%? Is that right?
Because it was, like I said,
471.
there was no uniform to the, it was all,
But
it all
the
came.
math is still the same, though. It's still an increase of 12% for transfer station, and a 471% increase for highway.
The uniforms were always just in the transfer station budget, that is to say, the ones that were through the company and cleaned periodically. The highway department uniform line is an older line which was just for the, not rental, but purchase of hats and sweatshirts, a few items that were not to be gone through the service. So it looks like a lot more of an increase in highway because none of it was in highway, really. They're not doing as much of the purchasing hats and stuff outright, but they are increasing, they're splitting adequately what wasn't split before. It was all in the transfer station.
But the transfer station didn't go down at all. It went up.
So the rest of that just speaks to what he was talking about with more people who are wearing them, and I think they have more pieces per person than they did for the seasons.
we made it mandatory for the transfer station employees to wear the uniforms. We had, I think, 3 different sets of uniforms for individuals that didn't even wear them. We made it mandatory because the new uniforms we have are very similar to my coat, which is back there. It's got the reflective stripes on them. So our shirts have the reflective stripes, and if you put a coat on, that has the stripes. Means they don't have to wear a vest, so they're always visible. It's more of a safety thing as well.
Charlie, you look like you
Oh,
have a
yeah, of
question.
course I got a question. Okay, in the transfer station, your attendance, you want 3 people Monday and Wednesday and 4 on Saturday?
Yep.
Okay, now does that dollar amount equal this?
It should.
Okay,
Yes.
then how are you gonna do the bailing? I thought you wanted to do that during the off time.
We can do it on the off time, or we can do it while we have the people there.
Yeah.
Right now, we're down 1 person, we have 2 people for Monday and Wednesday, and 3 on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, also, we can do the bailing. We don't necessarily need to bring someone in. We've
Okay.
already got us in-house,
Okay,
so it doesn't have to be someone from the transfer station.
I just wanted to make sure you was covered.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
What's the difference between the equipment and the vehicle repair and maintenance lines? See, there's a $5,000 increase in equipment. What is that slated for?
We're trying to catch up on, by doing the in-house projects, we need more tools to do our jobs. And we raised it up a little bit, we need some paving equipment that we don't have in-house, you know, and a lot of it's hand tools, wheelbarrows, et cetera. We haven't, well, that's in a separate line, would be the line striping. I think part of that, no, part of that money is for the, paint machine, so we can do our own line striping. And I think
The 15,000?
part of that 15. Yeah, that extra $5,000, the paint machine is over $4,000. And we can do the painting in-house ourselves.
The line striping?
The parking, your crosswalks and stuff, that can be done in-house,
So you're buying a line striper out of that?
yes. That's the intent.
And how much is that?
It's over about $4,400.
And I believe your paint is probably in the line striping line, is it, maybe in the $1,500?
Yeah, that's in, paint only is in the line striping.
Where's the vehicle?
Huh?
Where's the machine?
That would be in the equipment line, the increase of $5,000.
Oh, okay.
That will give us an opportunity to paint the lines more often and as needed. And then if we have if we do a paving project that we paved over a crosswalk, we can go back and repaint it and, you know, have your stop lines painted where they belong and stuff, as needed.
What did it cost to sub that out?
You're paying $4,000 a year, is what was in the budget before I started. And then you had the one time they came around, and in past histories that, where I've worked in the past, where you had companies come in and do it, they're not putting down nowhere near the thickness of paint you have, so the paint will last as long, so they can end up coming back more often. This, last year, nothing was done this past year in striping, other than what we did when we borrowed a machine.
How many people do you have uniforms for?
Excuse me.
How many people do you have uniforms for?
In highway, we have 3, and in the transfer station, all the employees in the transfer station.
So, it's about 6 employees.
Yeah, and if possible, 7, if we want to get back up to full staff.
John, I got a question on brush chipping. You gonna do that in-house, or you going out?
We attempted to do it in-house this year, and it got behind us, and we weren't getting the guys to come in and do it. They didn't wanna come in and chip crush, so we decided to go back, put it back in, send it back outside.
If we can do it ourselves in-house, I think we'll try, but we want the option to be able to
Right.
Oh,
get
okay.
it done
So
outside.
obviously, I know that the new crew doesn't wanna do the work there, as far as chipping, the new employees.
No, they're actually
They're the ones that want.
quite interested in doing it.
Oh.
We also had a very wet summer,
Oh,
which affected trying to get it done
you
as
got
well,
problems
so-
with it being too hot or too cold?
Exactly, yeah.
I know, I
So,
understand that.
Yeah,
I mean, we got way behind on it in the
Yeah.
beginning, and just didn't keep up with it after that,
Yeah.
just couldn't keep up with it.
So is that an estimate from a contractor?
That 4,000, or
Um,
3,500, that's what, yeah, we paid that
That's what we had last year.
the 2 years ago we got it done. Or last year we got it before this budget season. We didn't raise it, we just kept it at what it was, and he'll do whatever we can get in for that cost, or, you know, depending on how much we have.
So I see that there is almost a $14,000 increase in vehicle repair and maintenance from what we've spent so far this year into next year. What are you anticipating for repairs and maintenance?
Well, the fleet's getting older, and we actually, we're over on that 15 this year.
Oh, so that's not an accurate figure then?
Not this last quarter.
That's just through Q3.
So these numbers are only through Q3? Why is that?
That's as far as we got.
We can't get that out of QuickBooks?
Of course we can.
We
It's all
have
about
time issues, there's a lot to be done right now, so.
We
there's
had
time
a, the newest truck, the biggest truck, ended up having to have springs all replaced on it this year. And a set of tires on the front of it.
So do you know how much we've spent so far? How much we've spent this year?
About 16,000, I think, right now. I think we're around 16.
That's true, no?
Offhand, I wouldn't know, but we can get back to you with
That's
that.
okay. So, and you're expecting the same kind of repairs for next year?
Again, it's, the fleet's not getting any newer, so we gotta anticipate an increase in prices, and, you know, that's why we put it up. I'd rather have the money there that we pay a truck if we need to.
On the equipment account in your, in the sanitation, what's the 1,750? Because I know you're purchasing outright the baler, so when it's not going to warrant, because there's none left this year.
Let's find that line.
Maybe increase on that.
It would be on page 8, third line down.
Okay, in purchasing the new baler, it won't have to be done immediately, but that will have to be serviced as well throughout the year,
So
probably towards the end of the year. So it's the amount of money to
Change all the fluids.
change all the fluids and service all, which, that'll give us what, 4 balers? 4? Yeah, that'll give us 4 balers,
okay,
so it's 17,
so it's not really equipment, it's just maintenance,
it's maintenance, yeah.
so. So it should be maintenance,
The road resurfacing number, is that what we've spent to date?
That is the annual total.
And do we have estimates for 350,000 that's being proposed for this next year?
Yeah,
Or is
that's
that
a
a
question
guess?
I just asked earlier.
Is it a guess?
Yeah, that would estimate, it's not just gonna be resurfacing, that we're gonna end up doing ditch work and stuff on Sligo Road to keep the water in the side of the road instead of running down the road, tearing up the road. So until they get in, there's a lot of ledge there, we don't know if there's gonna be blasting, et cetera. Get into blasting, that's gonna bring the price up, and that could eliminate doing a lot of other things that we wanna do.
But, so you said it's just a guess?
That's a guess, yes.
Based on what was done last year.
Right.
And you have a certain amount of work you anticipate doing, it's an educated guess.
That's exactly
You have
right.
a quantity, rough quantity of what you wanna do, and you have some pricing
Right.
based on
And
project.
we're looking at, we've got some culverts to replace on Sligo on the further end of the road, and that's gonna be, have to be resurfaced also as we take them out. We're not in the section that we're planning on paving this year, but there's 3 or 4 cross culverts that go across Sligo Road, they're gonna have to be replaced. We're gonna do that in-house, but they're still gonna have to be in our budget.
Don't we have a capital for culverts?
We do, but this is something you're doing on your own, right?
Right, this is,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna be farming, these are just culverts that we're gonna replace ourselves. That are, again, the whole length of Sligo Road, the water's running on, above the road instead of down the ditch line, so we're gonna be doing the ditch work and putting new culverts in it where they cross the road. To eliminate the problems we've been having down there where the road's basically falling apart.
Do we have, we obviously have the backhoe to do that.
That's correct.
And we have the staff that's skilled to do that work as well?
Yep.
Can you talk about the 5.1% increase in salaries for attendance?
Sure.
What is that end up being across the board raises for those people?
I don't believe there was any raises that was approved for
So it's more hours?
any of the attendants. It's to add the extra person.
More hours.
Yeah.
The starting rate was also changed from $10.50 to $11 an hour.
And that was approved at the budget, at the last year's budget.
They're not getting the 2%?
I believe it was calculated to be that.
Yeah. My understanding is that all employees are getting 2%, but
Don't think it was calculated in
No, I
this
don't think
number.
it was.
we'll check on that.
We have 2 people that have been there less than 6 months, and one person's been there several years, so.
Do you do it on their anniversary of a year, or do you do it annually?
No,
It's done annually.
They do it at the annual.
Annual.
Annually?
Mhm.
How is the new telephone system working out that you're using the one?
We've eliminated the telephone line at the transfer station. We're using the same line now at the highway barn.
So the 420 that's in here is for,
I think our hopes is to use it for internet.
Right, and to get the internet into there so we can run our computer. Right now, we're on wireless, and we want to eliminate the wireless internet.
okay, so it's internet, not.
Yeah, we have one computer, his computer, well, we have one plug-in internet device. So if he wants to use his computer, he plugs a little internet thing in and can go online.
Right, we can't.
So when it comes time for me to do work on transfer station side, I have to run over, unplug his, bring it over, plug it into mine.
We just
If
want
we
to-
had internet, we'd be live all the time, so.
And it doesn't, it's not, we lose it half, well, a lot of times with the wireless,
Yeah,
so we want
it's like
to.
a cell phone thing that plugs into it,
Mhm.
so. Might be fine if you're out on the road somewhere, but we haven't found a need for it on the road.
I know hazardous waste hasn't spent any money, but that was done in the summer, and there's still no money spent.
Because they bill late, but
Oh.
it was billed, and it was slightly over the 1,500, it was like 1,570 or something like that.
So that would have been in the final quarter?
Correct.
Can you talk about the $2,500 increase in supplies?
Are we on highway or on?
Highway?
It's at the top of second line.
Because 2 years ago it was 3,000, and now it's 2 plus times that.
again, the whole problem was, there was a supply and equipment line, and things were getting intermingled before, so we, this is just, I mean, equipment will be the tools, and this is supplies that we need, like, for the paving and stuff, we have to buy, we didn't have money in there, we had to get out of our other funding to buy the tack that when you cut around the holes and stuff, you wanna put that, paving tack, which is $50-$60 a bucket. That's, so it'll adhere when you patch the holes in and stuff, it's paving, a lot of it's paving supplies and cleaning supplies that we need, solid, we
Blades
use
for the saw.
blade truss, the cutting saws at $100 and some odd a piece when you cut hot top. So all that stuff, it's getting up there, it's, again, you know, we're doing a lot more cutting and hot top and doing these projects ourselves, so it's things that you probably hadn't seen in the budget before.
No, Evelyn, I'm just concerned, I mean, you know, I know these numbers aren't real accurate, but it's over a $10,000 increase between those two lines. For supplies and equipment, you know, we're going from about 10,000 based on, you know, Q3 to 22,000.
Right, 44 of that is the machine, paint machine. And then if we have to buy the saws, you know, the blades and stuff like that, again, is stuff that wasn't being done before. And we're using these blades and cutting the hot top and, you know, so I mean, it's so that we put the money in there, because we plan on doing more projects this year. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game.
So for example, you guys were able to do the shoulder work at Woods Run,
Right,
which would have been contracted out.
we saved in doing the, in the Woodlands, we did the project, the shoulder work ourselves. Pike gave us a price of $15,000, we did it for the price of gravel at $3,000. So there's a $12,000 savings there.
But if I may interject, that required you to outfit a truck with your contraption to put gravel from the truck into the shoulder. So that's where a project like that hits supplies. So he saved money because we didn't use the contractor, but it was just gravel, but also sometimes doing things in-house requires building something to make it happen.
I guess that's the point I was trying to make, is
Yeah.
that we're adding capabilities because these guys are able to do more, we're doing more in-house, we're saving money overall, but it requires that we have the equipment to do it, I guess is what I'm hearing.
I mean, I got another list of projects that we have done, if you wanna, besides the paving, you know, the shoulder work and other, you know, we replaced a lot of stop signs, instead of buying new stop signs, we replaced 25 stop signs at half the cost of what it cost us for stop signs. And that was all done in-house. We acquired a roller at no cost to the town, which we got given to us. It works, it does the job, as much as we're gonna use it, all it's requiring is fuel. To rent a roller for these projects would have cost us $300 to $400 a day. So we figured there's some cost savings there, we maybe some maintenance on that machine occasionally, and that's gonna be part of the maintenance. We fabricated equipment to keep our backup equipment, so we can have a plow on a backhoe now if we break down. Last year last storm we were down to one truck. And so we decided to make a plow frame for the backhoe, so we can put a plow on the truck that's broke, on the backhoe, and continue to plow these streets. There's several different things that we have done to save money for the town, and our plans are to continue doing that. The project at the fire station was quoted at $10,000. We did the project at the fire station for less than $2. Repairing the ramp in front of the fire station, that's digging out the hot top and digging out some of the graveling, adding new gravel. So there's a whole list, I mean, you can pick.
And John,
No, I just gonna suggest one thing that may be beneficial is, we understand what you're saying. You know, if you pay $10,000 for equipment to save $30,000 overall, then it's well-spent money. The best thing I can say is exactly what you said, was when you have to modify stuff like that, you know, modify the truck you're talking about, that's an extra $500, you record that, and then you have maybe a spreadsheet or something where it says, you know, if we had Pike come in and do this job, it was $75,000. We spend an extra $2,000 on equipment and whatever on labor, and we ended up saving the town $50,000. And lots of those examples, in my opinion, will benefit equipment down the road to get. Does that make sense, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand what you're saying, having a good plan like this is just, obviously, going forward, the best thing to do is all the equipment we buy and stuff, how it saves the town money, is the best way to portray it.
And I apologize for that.
No, I don't apologize.
This is my first time as being
Don't worry about
in
it.
management, and of course, I get a little nervous when I get to talk in front of people.
No, I'm just trying
But,
to,
No, you didn't.
I'm trying to explain it to the best of my ability.
you're doing fine, and this,
I got a comment. I'd like
Some
to
of this
thank
stuff.
you too for all the work you've done. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Pike had what, 2 ton of tar?
Yeah,
And he says, oh, I got a place for that. And that didn't cost nothing.
yeah, we
Because
paved
he
the
had
front, we paved the
connections.
front of the highway garage with,
With
hot
it.
top that was left over from a project the company did in town. They asked us, if we had potholes to fill, I said, well, I said, I asked them how much they had 4 ton of hot top left, that was, and, you know, $10,000 project to pave the front of the highway garage. You know, so it was just, you know, being there at the right time, you know?
You come into a select board meeting on a night and they say, oh, we needed this much money to fix something, but we did the rest of it on our own because we just needed the material. They do an awful lot of work for 2 people.
your total overall, 11.7% overall, the budget went up from 18 to 19, correct? And if down the road, if we can really equate that to tooling, new tooling to save money, then I'm just gonna get your opinion too, Ken, but that seems like it would be money well spent at that in case of the fact. I mean, time will tell as next year comes up and.
The town report would be a great place for that.
Of course, almost 50% of that is because you're going up on paving of the roads, 25,000 of the 62.
Yeah, trying to get more projects done.
Yeah, I know that.
We did run it, I mean, the Woodlands project and Heritage Drive does not have adequate gravel under the roads, and that's, again, what our cost has changed when we did the projects. And you'll notice in the past, on the money spent on the roads, that we used, we were only gonna reclaim Woods Run from Sligo up to the original, the first cul-de-sac in Woods Run. As soon as we put the machine in to start reclaiming the road, we noticed there wasn't enough gravel on the roads, and this was gonna continue to be a problem. The project was 30 years old, apparently Jay just did patching and stuff in there since it was there. To properly fix, after speaking with the contractors and the people, it was best to put the gravel in the road and reclaim the whole project instead of part of it. So you'll notice that we added 2,000 ton of gravel to that project to bring that road up to today's standards. Originally, it was only gonna be ground in one layer of, we had to put 2 layers of pavement on that first section and then overlaid the rest of the project. And we decided to, after speaking with the select board, we decided to reclaim the whole project and just do the base coating in for this year. It does not have to be done this, we could get 2 or 3 years on the base, but they said it would be smart to get a second coat on that before it goes too far down the road. So we decided to do that, and the same problem is on Heritage. When we started doing Heritage Drive, there was a section of Heritage Drive 200 feet long that was over a landfill. We pulled out construction debris. We went down 6 feet and pulled out construction debris in the road and had to add all new gravel in that section, which eliminated doing 90% of that project last summer. We got 2 different sections of 400 feet ground down and added gravel and rebuilt those sections with anticipation of finishing that project this year, reclaiming the rest of the project and adding gravel, and then base coating it in. And hopefully get the top layer on. Again, that's why we went for the 350, the higher amount on the paving.
You've got heritage in this budget as well as the overlay at
We're
Woodburn?
hoping,
If you can get it.
If we can get it.
If you run into trouble on Sligo and you have to spend more money than you,
and we can put
Otherwise,
off
you can put
putting a
off.
top coat on all these projects until next year. But
Yeah.
we need to get Sligo rebuilt because that section between Bear Road and the woodlands is, the water's running right down the middle of the road. We can't even keep coal patches hot top on the roads. And the same thing's happening actually the whole length of the road, but obviously that's not gonna happen to repair that. The other thing is we opened up Sligo Road at the culvert and where the road was narrowed down due to the washouts. We talked to the engineers and they gave us permission, saying that it was okay to move the barriers back and eliminate some of them so we could get full traffic back down to Sligo Road, and that's been done. So, eliminating the cost of replacing the culvert too, there was supposed to be $425, $25,000 to replace the culvert, which won't have to be replaced. He said the culvert's in good shape. He said, but we should reinforce the bankings on both sides of on the north side of the culvert. Restabilize it with the riprap and rock and clean it out some, so the water flows properly. Eliminates the chance of washing out the edge of the road. Which would be a cost of about $25,000–$30,000 to do that project.
yeah, that's a big difference.
So in the past, Suzanne had provided us with kind of a plan, a project plan for expenditures.
We haven't sat down with the board this year to do the road, because it was towards the end of the year with the budget, when they were getting ready to do budgets, so we were planning on sitting down right after the first of the year to go over what our plans are for the road.
Can we have that before our budget workshop, so we can,
And then
when is that?
Second.
January 2nd.
Yeah, I just have a problem dumping money into the budget without really knowing where it's going to.
Board doesn't meet until the 3rd.
Well, that will change as things pop up, but just as he said, so.
you have the list, the previous list they had, that old Sligo Road.
Seems
The previous list would be really pretty accurate, it's just that those projects are taking 2 years instead of 1 year. So the list is subject to change according to the board's priorities, but, you know, what you have is really the most accurate version. Sorry, Ed.
Ed, you had something?
Well, I was gonna say, I've been around when we approved, the heritage and so forth, and theoretically, they were being built to optimum standards that, and I don't think they changed that much in the last few years.
No, you're probably right. The standards have changed somewhat.
But the problem was, when I was one of the guys that approved that, we assumed that they were putting in what should be put in, and it was never put in, and building over that dump up there, which we didn't know anything about it, they just went ahead and did that, and that was a private contractor, of course. And then, of course, several times we've spent lots of money partially filling in that hole, but that was a pretty big hole originally.
And it was,
And deep, yeah, but when we approved those roads, we didn't have any requirements that some engineer would go through and specify exactly what was done, and so then when those roads were bid, we would have had it built according to standards, and if they weren't built according to standards, the town would have been in a position to do it.
right.
So you can blame me for approving something, but we didn't have any requirements that some engineer go through and specify exactly what had to be put in there. Say, well, we're gonna put 20 inches of some kind of gravel and stuff in, and that's plenty according to standards. Well, they just didn't put it in there. and then you don't find out about it for 10 years or something like that when it starts falling apart. But we could go back, but we don't have any standards that
Right.
it was built to, so it really seems like part of building new roads or running new roads, you gotta have somebody, an engineer that you can take them to court on.
And if you're not watching these projects, there's nobody overseeing the projects, things are happening on a daily basis, you know, it's, if you don't have we don't have a full-time, inspector, you know, you got a part-time inspector and stuff like that, but they're working every day on these projects, and that can happen anywhere, you know, it's, unfortunately, that was 30 years ago, and that's nothing you're gonna do about it today.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying
Right.
that from now forward,
Right, it's
at least we need some
oversight.
oversight there that can give us some teeth.
Yep.
Even if you come back 5, 10 years later, and we find that there was not put adequate underage under there, that we could require them to rebuild the road back to the original standards that they had agreed to, but but you gotta have that all planned in and know who's gonna inspect it beforehand and so forth, and then who's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
It could still be inspected and the guys could cut corners, but if they were required to put in this according to engineer X, we can go back and do something about it,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you, Ed, but I think it's also probably a select board discussion, or, so we probably ought to shift back to the budget, but I totally agree, someone should be inspecting these projects, make sure we're getting what they promised. Frank, you had a question?
I was just gonna ask, what do we have in place so we now, and maybe if this is the wrong place, but I was gonna ask, what do we have in place now for the projects that we're doing to assure that they were done right?
Or highway
What is the check and balance system?
You should be seeing what they're putting in for gravel, you know, I mean, if they're just digging out a road and then putting in bank run gravel and stuff, that's not an adequate base for the road. No, you gotta keep an eye on what's going on, that's the whole problem.
So basically, right now, it's more, you know what they should be doing and you're watching them.
Yeah, we're watching and seeing what's going on.
On that job on Woods Run and on Heritage, either he or I or both of us, we're right there.
But are there like specific, documents that say this is how we're gonna do it, and they have to
We know what we asked for base,
Yeah.
for hot top, and we're visually watching them. And they have a test rod they put in, and we're watching it to make sure
Yeah.
that it's
They're
coming up
putting
with
the
what it
thickness, the right thickness and stuff.
What happens now, 10 years from now, when X road, new road you put in, and renovate it, and start falling apart? Both of you guys are retired, and how do we have that check? When you go look at it, and you say on June 27th, I inspected it, and it was put in this way, so, and when you're long gone, we still got that document
True.
on record. If we don't have, I just think there's not much you can do. I had the same problems that guys 10, 20 years before me, we had things that they didn't put anything under the roads. But there was no documentation and nothing. And the guys that was involved in that were long gone, retired, died, whatever. And so you gotta have the documentation on file somewhere where we can go back and pull it out and see that you signed it, or whoever the inspecting officer was that day, they signed it. And we got documentation, and that we can go into court or whatever. We need to know that whatever we have, we'll stand up in court too. You can't just have him to sign it, he didn't sign it right or whatever, it's still not gonna. But that's been a problem for every time I was around here, that a lot of stuff wasn't done right, but there was not much you could do about it at that point, except pay whatever it cost to get it back up to
Yeah, I think it's
minimal.
a problem across the industry. But, any other questions on specifically for the highway department?
I have a
Go ahead, Kim.
So I'm gonna apologize in advance for offending you. I would like to see more of a plan around this budget before we go to budget workshop. I just have a problem, I mean, you admittedly are a first-time manager, and you now have the biggest budget in town. So handing over almost a $600,000 budget, I think needs more of a plan before I can buy into it. That's all I have.
What are the chances that that's, I guess, is that a question that coming from Kim? Is that a question that is coming from the entire committee?
Well, obviously, right now it's coming from Kim, but it's a good point she's bringing up, so, I mean, I guess it's worth discussion.
Just what's the likelihood that we're gonna get a
Yeah, that's the
rate
first
between
question, I
now
guess.
and
Well, it's not hard, I mean, they obviously have a plan in mind, they didn't just throw
just
these
outline
numbers. Right.
what the
Right.
items are
Yes.
and sort of what the estimate is for each item.
Yeah, estimates we may not get right away. So, again, I can get a call into these two companies, come and look at them, and we'll see what we can do for getting the
Even if
estimates.
it's your estimate, you can say that.
But, you know, I mean,
Well, I'm
I think she
concerned about
wants a
that.
detailed plan of the projects that you're saying, or the equipment that you're buying. Doesn't necessarily have to be the exact dollar it's gonna cost you, but it's saying this is what we're, and she has a very good point. We should have that in writing, so then down the road, you're gonna know what you had on that plan and what didn't get done for one reason or another, possibly ran out of money, and it would carry over to the next year, and then whatever additional. So I'll bring it up at the board meeting. Thank you. And we'll work
It's a
on it
list of
together.
assumptions, essentially.
Yep.
Well, I mean, unless you're just throwing dollars into these buckets as a slush fund, there should be some thought behind it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there
Well, his
is.
presentation to the board, there was, but nothing that we have in writing to agree to you, so we'll put it more down in documentation for you guys to have that. It wasn't just handing in money and saying do it why, that's not how it works.
Understood. Okay, so I think that's,
I mean, there is a lot of ditch work that needs to be done in this town. It hasn't been done in a long time, which is causing a lot of the problems too.
we need to talk
Right by
about Sligo
Paul's house
Road
for one,
before
so,
Thanks, guys.
you know, so that's, do you have anything else on the transfers? No?
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Transfer station all set, or you want any more questions?
Oh, one quick question on the transfer. Ed, how many hours a week do you put in the transfer?
Do I put in over there?
Yeah,
Oh,
just ballpark it.
probably 4 anyway, minimum. I mean, I'm bouncing between.
No, I know that, no?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yeah.
I know, because you're the manager there.
Yeah, it's probably more than that, but it's hard to calculate in a way, because I might go over there for 20 minutes,
Oh,
you know, and check and see how they're doing in one of the buildings, and, you know, answer some questions, and come back over to the highway and another couple hours, and then go back over there for another hour, or,
and on
and I'm
given,
making phone calls as far as.
and on a given day, you might have only one guy there, so you gotta spend.
Yeah, in which case, if I have someone out or someone
I'm
in
just trying to get a
class,
ballpark.
yeah, and someone in class, then I'm the fill-in guy.
Yeah.
So, whether it's during the week or on the weekend, so. Half the time on my way home on a Thursday sometimes, or on a Wednesday, I'm calling our health company, Triano, for my truck, and, you know, ordering the truck to come in and haul the containers and things of that nature, so.
One quick follow-up on this. It's related to budget, but it's not. When are we gonna get done with single stream?
Good possibility within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Tomorrow's project and Friday's project, we've ordered the lumber to make our bins. And one of the things that we had to do is get down to Sligo Road and remove some of the barriers that were down there. Those are Jersey barriers, which
Yeah,
are wide on the bottom and they kind of come up narrow. They make a perfect bin divider. So we've got enough of those that we were able to pull out of there and leave enough on Sligo to protect what needed to be protected. They're at the shop now, and with a little bit of luck, they're gonna be in place, maybe by the end of this week. I'm really hoping by the end of next week. Get them in place, we're gonna get the walls built between them, build the walls in the shop, take them out there and install them. And what my plan is to have a single stream bin still there, so we can, for a week or two, so we can bounce between the two. You know, those we can get trained to use the bins, we'll do that. The other one will be there just to fill in and and we'll go full stream, and it should work out pretty well.
This is another project that they do in-house with just parts.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we're both pretty decent carpenters, so we can build things like this. We went to Middleton Lumber today. We got approval from the Board of Selectmen Monday night to purchase the lumber. So as we're sitting there going through our list, and, 2x4s, 2x6s, looking at texture 111, for instance, which is $40 a sheet, and we also asked, well, how much is pressure treated plywood? It was $22 a sheet or something like that. It's like, okay, change that plan, and, so use the cheaper material, but I think it's a better material, where it's pressure treated. So everything that's gonna go up down there eventually will be painted anyway, and then another thing down the road, I might as well throw this out there. These bins are gonna sit there open air. They really need to have a roof over them. So that's something for next year's, I think we've mentioned it to the selectmen, try to build some sort of a roof structure over them, over that whole area where
You're not bailing snow.
Yes, you're not bailing snow. Or you're not getting your product wet. For instance, if you take a bale of wet, you bale a bale of metal, for instance, cans, and it's wet or plastic. When it gets to wherever it's gotta go and they find out that it's 20% water, that's not gonna fare well for us. So it needs to be covered. The other thing that needs to be covered is the tires. By state law, the tires are supposed to be covered, so they're not a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So these are all things that I wouldn't have thought of, but fortunately we're forced to go to this class and have a certificate that says that we are transfer station attendants, and that's part of the class, is learning all that sort of thing too, so.
Just one quick question for Carolyn. The full-time staff, line item, is that salary or hourly?
Are you talking about highway?
Yeah.
It's hourly, which is why there's overtime calculated.
That's it, seriously.
This time, that's it.
I think I'm the staff. So,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Great job.
Good job.
appreciate it.
Good job, good job.
So,
Yeah.
So we have water and
Ed,
sewer
I
next,
think,
right?
actually, we had a pretty good.
Oh, fine. Yeah.
She was out there.
Is she up there?
I've always had
She was.
a red complexion,
We don't wanna,
so, yeah, so,
see you guys.
thank you.
Sorry, you didn't do clerk yet, so the town clerk knows who you are, so.
I didn't realize she was here.
Yeah,
Hey,
Say I'm coming into the firing squad.
you throw blanks.
I do have some changes to my budget, I think you all have it.
It would be whatever's in the town's budget, is that what that is?
It's what I submitted to Caroline.
So
Is there
it-
one for town clerk?
Yeah, it would just be on the budget line, on the first page.
She has page one, the last line. She just has her.
I just have mine.
Yeah, well, okay.
What page is the, okay.
We're starting on the bottom of page one.
Bottom one.
Last line.
Oh, yeah, I see the town
Hello all.
clerk,
Hello. You guys are really committed.
We should be committed. At least we can agree on that.
Just getting
A
started.
late night. So, I guess I have, to see where you guys have questions. I will start with the change that I made, is I don't think I'm gonna order another voting booth. And that's because, I watched the last election, and people tended to sit and go to the cardboard ones than to go to the booths. I think it's gonna be more comfortable, and now that we're SB2, we're looking at 3, I think both sides of a ballot, 3 full ballots. So it's gonna take longer for people, and I don't think people are gonna stand. I think the cardboard ones are crazy cheap, and I'm just gonna put up more tables. Some people still feel the need to go in a booth, but the majority of the people are sitting.
So that would be a decrease of the $700
Yes.
up on your budget?
Yes,
So that would be a bottom line decrease of 700?
yeah. And then the other thing, I took a couple of things out. The training, I'm not gonna go to, it's just a waste of my time. I'm supposed to go to one spring training a year to keep my being a New Hampshire town clerk, but I don't see anybody enforcing it. And it's really a waste of a day. So, I mean, there's not much more than, nothing new, you know? It's not like I'm learning
I
anything.
don't see anything major.
No, well, so I have that and the mileage, which I don't get or use. And then the other thing is, there is a really neat new program out for DMV, and it's with Avatar. So I was hoping to get that program, but now the board isn't really happy with Avatar right now, and they're meeting with them next Monday. I was hoping that if we still maintain them, next year might be a better year to ask them to reduce the price of their program because they're already here in town.
May I
It
ask
just-
why the board's not happy with
They signed their contract last night,
Yeah, the one-year
the
contract.
one-year contract.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, they've gone up on their prices.
Right, but
Um,
they explained, they came in and talked to us last night, they explained why they had to go up on their contract, and we accepted his explanation and signed the contract.
Okay,
But for 1 year.
okay, yeah, so I was apprehensive to,
How much does it pay?
it's like 10,000 for the program, yeah. DMV is, they're advancing a lot in the programs, so I wanna wait it out till somebody gets a really good one. I mean, they have them now where you can scan everything, you don't have to,
Something
type it
you might
in.
consider next year's budget, but
I
not
think
this year.
next year's, yeah, and the Avatar one is really good, but I just wanted to see what we ended up doing with them. Because I personally saw an enormous amount of mistakes after the reval with them. I didn't think, I mean, Andrew found more errors than anyone. She's on top of them.
Quick question on the voting booth. I noticed it was budgeted for 700 and cost 925. You know why?
Yeah, he actually, the guy I deal with, I always buy the dented or the display model,
There you go.
so I always get the reduced price.
But you went, he's saying you spent more than.
You
spent
spent more this last time.
Spent 925
On
instead of
this
700
current budget.
in the current year.
No, I don't think it was that much. Was it?
Yeah.
That's what it is in the,
That's
Oh,
what
you know what, I think the curtain, I think we had to order the curtain after the fact. They have these arms with curtains on them. I think that was a couple $100. The booth itself, we got the chipped one or something for 700. But it's gotta be the curtains.
Okay. That's been going on in the budget committee for a few meetings.
Oh, yeah, you should have emailed me.
What?
You could have emailed me.
What?
Oh, you don't email?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody else could. I did want to, I mean, I'm open to any questions about the proposed budget. Because I did want to talk to you about, and I did go to the board about how much more the elections are consuming my time versus the pay. And even the board didn't really understand that some of the times that, a lot of the times that I'm preparing for an election is not during my usual hours. Now that we have SB2, I don't think we'll ever be able to hold an election here again. So when I was here in the office, I could set up and do things, and now that it's at the Legion, I have to, set a whole nother 4 or 5 hours to go down there to set up. But the whole election process in general is just, keeps continuing to climb with regulations. To do an absentee, for instance, I had 70 absentees at the last election. I have to enter in the state system 6 different entries. The person comes in, they fill out a form, I have to enter it in. Then I have to mail it out, I have to go back and enter it in. Then the person mails it back, I have to enter when they, it's a long process. So just the absentees alone, not to mention setting up in the hours that we're required to be here. I don't even think most people know that when we have any federal election, I have to be here on Saturdays. It's called UOCAVA. I have to be here in case somebody in the military faxes, emails, or mails in a request for an absentee ballot. And that involves a couple of Saturdays, but it's not something that anybody would know because I'm here, but there's just a great deal of hours. And so Suzanne had asked me to keep track of my hours for one election, and I did. And if I were getting paid my hourly rate, it would have been like $600-700 an election. So I have to come up with a way that I can be compensated, whether it's an hourly rate or upping my stipend, because it just consumes so many hours. And it's my own fault because for years I've been masking it by just getting it done because I want the election to be perfect. And then I figure I'll take the time off, but now,
Is it something that volunteers can help with? I'm just asking.
I've had, in fact, this past election, I got the most help I've ever had. The highway department was exceptional. And then one of my supervisors, who's retired, helped me. But, like, Andrea's gonna be here to watch the window, so I can go down and do that. But I used to try to back my time out, but now it's getting harder and harder to do that, to get out of the office.
How many hours do you think you invest in the election process?
I'd say 60 in an election.
And that's just preparing for the election?
Preparing the day of and the day after. As always, and it fluctuates. Since I've been here, I've had 4 elections. I think the first year I started. Yeah, we had 4 and a recount, and then it dropped to 1, and then I had 3 elections, and in 2020 I'll have 4. So there's a real, just running the office 20 hours a week is enough, and it's really 25, and it has been for a long time. But again, I've masked it because that's my work ethic, and I just get it done. So I've started to keep track of the additional hours. It's things that nobody in town would ever know. The printer for the state, the DMV, the fuse one. It took me 3 days to get the state down here to fix it. So it was a full-time job just explaining to every single customer, I don't have a printer, leave me your paperwork, I'll be glad to get it to you. So they came, I worked 9 to 1, they came at 2. So at 2 o'clock, I had to do all these registrations, and then I hand-delivered and mailed them to people that needed them. And, people don't know that I do that, or I come in on Saturdays. I do take Fridays in the summer, but Carolyn will tell you how many of them was I here.
She's often here.
It's because I need time just with no window. So it's hard to back the time out. So,
how many hours for an election did you say?
60 for federal,
60, 60?
yeah.
Okay,
Thank
you.
That includes the day of the election.
Yes, and it could
Which is a
be,
long day.
it could be 40 with a town one. Those are a little less stressful, not as,
How much is the stipends?
it's 200. But I mean, I could get paid hourly if you wanted me to keep track of it, or you could do a stipend. But it's just, I think in anything federal, it's getting bigger and bigger and much more time consuming.
So for this year, can we anticipate that it's probably gonna be about a 40-hour addition?
I would think so. I mean, I've never done SB2. It's gonna be different. People are gonna be in the booths a long time. So, the flow is gonna be slower. And I am concerned about the machine. It's never handled that many ballots. It's gonna be taking I think, two, both sides, possibly three from each person. So I'm gonna be nervous about that. I mean, we have a used piece as it is. We bought a, a
Don't get
used
too
one.
nervous.
So it's still a 12-hour
Don't get too
window.
nervous.
I mean, it's still a 12-hour window regardless of
It is,
how many ballots.
but if the machine goes down, then it isn't. Because then we're hand counting, we're right back to the original process.
You're gonna have at least two for the town and one for the school.
Yeah, I know. And so that's something we have to think about down the road, is getting another machine so that if ours plonks out, we have another one we can roll in. I'm always trying to save, so the city of Portsmouth is getting all new ones, and I'm gonna try to buy one of their used ones.
No, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm wondering, do you feel like the time that you're putting in is related to, like antiquated equipment or systems? Or do you feel like it's just the time things take? Like, for example, the absentee ballot thing. Like, in cities, right, they have gajillions of people that are doing absentee ballots. Is there a software program, is there something that we can be doing?
We're all logged into this, the whole state of New Hampshire. It's called, it's through the state, and it's on a timer, which is even more frustrating. So I start putting in your absentee ballot, I get a car. I jump up, I do the car, I go back, I'm out.
It's gone.
I gotta go back and start over again. So I come in when I'm not open to do those, because it's the only way I can process them, and it's so particular. I mean, the AG's office can call me and say, Peter Pan ordered a absentee on Friday, and you logged in that you mailed it on Saturday. I mean, and they ask us these questions. It's a state program. I do have the right equipment, I just don't have the time.
How many did we get last year, absentee ballots?
We did 70 the last election. And, again, SB2, all new to all of us. A lot of people who maybe wouldn't come and vote may choose to do absentee. So,
Is having something on double side more taxing for the machine versus having it on a single side
I don't think so, because it is designed to read both sides.
That's what the school
at the
did.
same time?
Yeah,
I mean, it does it at
Yeah.
the same time? Okay.
yeah,
The schools is selling.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
we're talking about a much bigger volume
yeah.
for this particular election in March. So I didn't know if it would be easier just to have a single sheet go through.
Would be easier just to have two machines,
Oh, well,
but,
In a perfect world.
no.
Yeah, I know, because Kate, when you do the ballot testing, you put them all in one way, and you go another way, you do it
4
4
ways.
ways. She has to do the ballot testing 4 times to
That's
make
another
sure they
thing.
count.
That's part of, and see, these general people, they don't understand that, they think I show up that day, and, I mean, that's actually that's the easiest part of an
Oh, I-
election, is the day. Because I've got all this help and it goes well. And, I've gotta say, our election went beautiful. The parking, people got in and out, the machine works, the numbers were perfect, and everybody bitched because we ran out of stickers.
I did say that.
Really? Somebody posted, yeah, poor planning. Really? The whole country ran out of them. I'm sorry you couldn't have your selfie of your I voted sticker, but,
High turnout everywhere.
oh, God. So I don't want to keep you guys any longer, but I do want to talk to you about,
Well, actually, before we move on, so
Oh, yeah,
I'd like
sorry.
to propose that we, considering that, SB2 we have SB2 now, and it is going to be more work, that we increase the town clerk stipend, say maybe to $500 or something like that.
I mean, I can keep track of my hours if you'd rather, but I think 500 is gonna average out, because for federal ones, it's more than 500. For a town, it could be less. And then, and also, keep in mind that when I have elections, I have to go to the deliberative sessions, the actual town meetings that I've, 6 hours, and then recounts. Recounts might seem simple, but they're hugely stressful. You have to have the recount, and then the state is immediately on you about getting them sealed and what your results are. They're stressful. That's not just a,
Can I ask a
Especially
question
Bill-
before?
Yeah.
One thing, I would support that increase, but I would also like keep track, so let's do
Okay.
both.
I can do that.
So that we can, you know, we do both and we can see and make sure it's enough.
Yep.
So
Can I
that-
just
that-
ask one question before all of that? How long's it been that there's been a stipend in there? Has it always been a $200?
Yeah, Beverly, God bless her, had a $50 one. And, but elections, I'm not saying they were easier, but there were not as many, not as much prep work. And you weren't so tied to the state. I mean, the state,
No.
on these Saturdays that I come in, I have to log in that I'm here. I have to tell them what time I checked the mail, what time I checked my emails. We're connected, and Beverly never was. So anyways, it was 50 for many, 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 many years.
Well, it was 200
And then,
for you for
I
a little
requested-
while, but then it got changed either last year or the year before, that it was 200 for every election. She used to only get 200 for a year.
right,
I know.
And-
Suzanne was big about promoting that,
I know, Charlie, you might know, but others may not know that.
yeah.
So I'm just saying, it did get changed per election, so now this year's come back to us to 200 because it's a single election coming up
Right.
next year.
Right, and I love those years.
Now, the tax collector, you're covering that
Excuse
on the
me?
budget? Or is Kate?
Tax collector?
Yeah.
For what?
Oh, yeah.
I got a question on it.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah, wait, let Kate finish herself.
Oh, so if you're all good with your questions, I just wanted to go over what's going on in our little office. And so Caroline helped me and I put together some incredible information on our auto revenues increased 41.48% in 8 years. And I have the numbers. In 2013, when I started, I think it was 13. Was it 14? 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 463,000 that we took in autos. Today, and we're not even done with the month, I'm up to 647. There's been an enormous uptick in this town. In autos, when I started, we had 250 dogs, we're up to 600. I instituted the $5 to each vehicle. You know, I had to work with the state and Caroline, we got that on the program, which raised $12,000. Our deaths, births, and marriages have tripled. The first year I was here, they didn't train me in it, so I didn't do death, births, and marriages. Now I'm doing sometimes 7 and 8 in a day, because the government, the Real ID, everybody has to have the original birth certificate, marriages, any name changes, and now for Social Security. Everybody's gonna have their original birth, marriage, death, so there's a big uptick there. Then we're selling, of course, the transfer station passes. So I just wanted to say that we're booming. That office is booming. And the revenue that's coming in, Andrea is doing an exceptional job. You know, I see the fire department and the police department, and I see their budgets, and especially their payroll, and the public works, and they're all doing a great job, and they've got the best of everything. But our little office seems to get picked apart every year at budget season. And I just want people to realize, Andrea collects $6 million, and her audit is perfect every single year. She not only collects it and it's done properly, and I know people can say, well, that's your job, but she goes over and above. She finds exemptions. She found a $100,000 exemption of somebody who passed away and the person living in the house was still getting it. She just had another person who's getting a full exemption that was off the tax rolls that is now on. That's $300,000, $400,000 alone. The errors she found in the assessing, thousands and thousands back to this town. And yet she's getting paid the least. She's been here the longest, and she's getting paid the least. And I'm taking in close to $1 million, and I just want you to realize that this little corner office is taking in all the money safely, accurately to run this town for all our beautiful equipments and all the bling and the, and I'm actually insulted that it's a 2% increase, because I think we do a damn good job. We have very little that we spend in supplies. We bring our own stuff in. And 2% is, I think, an insult.
So the mistakes that Andrew's finding, that you're bringing up, are that mistakes that Avatar's making, or is it mistakes that are?
It's both, you know, it's an example, we had
Yes.
a family that put a two-car garage with an apartment above it 7 years ago. Avatar never picked up on it, Andrew picked up on it, got Avatar to assess it. That's an additional, I don't know, probably $1,400 on the tax roll, and this is every day that we really work hard. We get the building permit money in here, like I said, I instituted the registration, the $5 fees, which raised another $12,000. We don't just come in and do our job. We look for ways to bring our revenue in, and there's, you know, my audit from the state is perfect. Our town auditors used to be here for 3 or 4 weeks. Now they're in and out in a couple of days. We're saving money on that. So we seem to, you know, we don't spend a lot of money, and we seem to be the office that gets kind of picked on when it comes to raises.
I would take offense to that. No one is picking on anyone.
Not picking on.
It's across the board 2%. That's all I'm gonna say.
And that's what we heard last year, and then.
I was on the board last
Yeah, I'm
year.
sorry, I'm just saying,
Okay.
so that's what we were told last year. However, the police got 3%. And we were told because we don't have supervisors, we couldn't have 3%. Well, if we're self-motivated enough to where we don't even need a supervisor, I would think we're all the more reason. It's just difficult for us to see, I mean, our fire department looks great, the equipment, I can't believe the police department, the amount of cruisers we have, the highway looks great, and I'm thrilled. As a taxpayer, I love to see that stuff's getting done. But you're talking a couple $100 for Andrea and I, and each year there's a different reason why we can't get 3%.
I just wanna say that I'm usually the picker, and it's mostly about the fact that, I'm gonna keep saying it again and again, we have no job descriptions, we have no method of evaluating performance. So, you know, saying 2% is
Kim,
across
it's
the
kind of
board.
obvious if you're collecting $6.1 million for the town, the revenue coming in.
And that it's
And follows
increasing.
all that, what do you want for a job description?
Yeah, how can we,
Do you have a
Go ahead.
job, wait a minute, do you have a job description? Because I know I do. Who here has a job without a job description? Who here doesn't get evaluated on their performance?
but we hear that every year, so how can we
You?
go year to year to year?
Working for the government, it's a different thing, everybody gets a
I work for the
service.
government, you get your increase, but you also get evaluated, you still get merit,
Jody, you got a question?
Yeah,
I do.
but-
yeah.
Actually, an answer. She did turn in a job description and evaluation, and we handed it to the chair at the time, and it sat there. And I said, when are you gonna finish? And she said, later. And I kept getting later and later and later. It was my job on joint loss, when I was on the select board, to get everybody's job description, give them to the chief offered to organize it for everybody. And it was turned in, the only one I didn't get was Caroline's, because that kept changing, I think. And there's a pile of them somewhere.
I think we're sliding pretty far off. I mean, this is really a select board issue, a personnel issue. I mean, yes, the amounts
Okay.
matter to us, but Nancy,
I just have, it has to do with, when you're talking your town clerk salary, or are you talking about your stipend?
No, town clerk salary,
All right.
because I wanted to start
It's
with the
because
stipend, but then.
Isn't, I believe, isn't it because it's a stipend because you're an elected official and you're not actually
Right.
the employee, you're not an employee
Yeah,
of the
so I
town?
don't have anyone to supervise me, so every year I hear the same thing. Well, we can't, how do we base it? Well, you look at these numbers, 41% increase in autos, the dogs. I mean, to me, that's rewarding, and it's hard to come to work and work hard every single day and want to stay with your company. I mean, we all work for somebody, and 2% after you really knocked it out of the park is just kind of a, I see a lot of money, a ton of money. I mean, the police department alone, their salary's what, $500,000? Andrea and I don't even make 50 between us.
They make less per hour than you guys. Some of them make less per hour.
Exactly.
Well, not the full-time.
Yeah, full time.
Yeah, they do,
We're
per
about,
hour.
and we're
And it's a
about
real
$10,000 per officer less than the neighboring towns.
Well, I definitely know that that needs to go up. We've seen the lack of applicants.
I just wanted to say that this is where we shouldn't be as a budget committee. This is personnel. It's between the select board and the employees, and we are here to look at a budget and say, you know,
This is what's
where we think
recommended to
things are
us.
recommended, right? But
Right, it just-
it's
I
getting-
haven't come in
this
each
is not
year.
something that we should be entrenched in, I think. It's personnel.
But if we go to the board, we're told it's the budget committee. If we go to the budget committee, we're told it's the board.
The
We don't-
budget committee is not personnel. We don't do
No, I
personnel.
know, so, but you're the ones who
All we-
propose our,
A bottom line.
Only
We-
bottom
We
line.
can, we
We do
can
bottom line.
recommend that money is added for certain things, but we can't decide how it's gonna be eventually.
Did you put in a number for a raise?
no, but I thought 3% was average. You know, it's a good economy. Beverly never once didn't get 3% all the years she was here, so I just assumed we would always get 3% until last year when we got cut back. And, you know, we were told the police did too, but then lo and behold, the police did get theirs.
Well, I don't know what we, I mean, it's good to hear and good to be aware
Yeah, I
of it.
think I just wanted to voice it, because I just feel like our little corner office, I mean, we're just as important as the police and the fire and the highway department. I mean, we don't work full-time, but we're very important. I mean, if the money doesn't come in, the town's not running. In Andrea's collection, you can check all small towns in the area, she has less than $100,000 uncollected. She's worked with banks, foreclosure companies, people to do payment plans, things that were never done in prior years. And the collection is up.
And I agree with Michelle, this is something that you really need to, if you have a grievance with the select board, then that's where the grievance should be, is with the select board, because we
Well, I did come
honestly
in and talk
can't.
to them, but I just wanted you as a committee to know as well, because I don't think there's anyone in town that knows how much that we put into our positions. So,
I don't think anybody for the town is overpaid.
no. No, I'll leave it. So, that's my
Thank you, Kate.
spiel.
All right, thank you, Kate.
Okay, back to my baby.
No, good job, Kate.
Got my little grandchild here.
Yeah, leave it.
Huh?
Okay,
Thank
Frank.
you.
See you, Kate.
Good night.
If you guys want to pass around this bunch. Then this bunch.
And I can barely read that.
Yeah, that's why, when it comes over here, don't even bother. Just send me a copy of it and I'll look at it on the. When it comes to the little writing, I can't even see it, so.
Jesus.
Why don't we try to start with these?
Okay.
All right,
Ones
we
with the
haven't got
striped
those
line.
yet.
If you guys want to join us?
Did we, did everyone else get this one? Because it's
No.
actually here.
No,
You go this way? Oh, here we go, oh, there's one.
One starts at 600 and one starts at 0.
Were any of these sent electronically?
No.
300, yeah.
Right, it's in.
No, it's not.
No, it's not in there. That's the town, this is sewer and water.
Okay.
So two of these?
It's on, yeah, you took one of each stone.
I
So this is- Huh?
Isn't it?
There's 17 over there
Of
at the
course.
end.
Wait a minute, I think I got two.
You should have
Water,
two
what
with some,
is that one?
two with
Oh,
some
you
color
didn't
in
get
it.
Start in 0,
And then the
one
big
stop
packet.
0, and then
Yeah, big packet
On
and
this
then
side, all we got is big
300.
packet.
Okay, well, I don't know if we have enough with the big color.
Okay, that's fine.
This isn't as important as the big packet, so let's see what's on here. So we have Allison Cody, she's the treasurer. And we And we have Ray, he's the operator. for the plant. Would you guys like me to make some quick copies of the colored ones?
So you just said that's the most important piece, right?
No, this is, the,
It's not as important
Oh,
as
it's
it.
not as important.
Yeah, we definitely only have
This
one.
this basically shows that we're at 99% of our budget in both water and sewer right now. That's what we've got
Yeah, we
here.
only have one, maybe some more would be good.
I got two, I got each here.
Yeah, but there's two copies.
They're both
There's-
here.
But you need
I think they're different.
Yeah,
That's
there's
what I mean,
one.
that is one of each, one of each.
One is water, one is sewer.
One did 300 the
What did
first
you
line
have?
and the other
You
0.
Yeah,
Can we read it?
Sure.
She got sewer.
So you say you're
I want to hear
95%?
95% for water, 95%.
Here, take
99%
this, 98
water.
Carol.
Sorry,
Oh, you
99%.
took me a set? All right, now we have a set. There we go.
I think she is.
And I need those copies because I don't have one, so we're gonna wait a second. So we had plenty of the big packet. Okay, why don't we start with water then?
Okay, got it.
I have an extra sewer here, if anybody was missing a sewer.
No, that's what she's got a sewer.
I gave up my silver, I'm waiting for it.
Okay, so I think we've all seen this, maybe three months ago or so. And I already mentioned that we were not in great shape with water and sewer. I also mentioned that we had enough in other parts of the budget to get through the year. And we're kicking our way through, and we're gonna get through the end of the year without exceeding our budget. If you look at the red area, that's what we expect to spend before the end of the year.
I guess the
We're
gray.
not, we're not colored.
Oh,
No, we're not covered.
Gray.
Oh, yours aren't, okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, you see expected, you're gray. So
Okay.
if you look in the gray area, you're gonna see that we've got 23,000 that we expect to spend in water, 23,359. And that cumulatively will go to the next line, total spent of 292,440, or put us at about 99%. So we're gonna get there, but
Can
it's tight.
you say it one more time, because that's, I don't have those numbers.
I don't either.
I don't either.
You're on water.
We're saying
On the gray line.
23,810.
Gray line water,
Yeah,
Next line,
Oh, we're doing water now?
yeah, we were on
Okay.
water.
but it's
You had said
23,810,
23,359.
23,810.
23,810.
Okay, hold on, maybe the one you took out was the wrong one. So let me do it with Ed here. Okay, 23,810. So you're gonna see though, the next line over, total spent will be 292,891, puts us at about 99%. That's what we expect is gonna happen by the end of the year. Our budgeted amount was 295. When it's all said and done, we think we're gonna have $2,000 left, 2109. And you can see the year before, we only spent 245, so that was 2017. The big difference there is, we had, I think I mentioned before, we've had the same budget for the last 4 years, the same total budget of 292. The difference is the warrant article. If you look below, 50,876 was spent, and budgeted and spent. So that was our warrant article that was voted on in March. And the way things had always gone was there was extra money because we weren't really doing everything. We'll get to that later. So now take a look at sewer. At the same lines, look at the gray area. Or just to the right of the gray area, 299,718. We're projecting to be at 99%, or $2,185 remaining. So, give or take a little bit, we're out of money. Warrant
Can I ask you a
article the
question?
year before,
Can I ask you a question? Your year goes April though, right?
no,
You changed it to be January to December?
we've always been.
I thought they were April. Oh,
No.
Okay, disregard my question.
No, we've always been. So then warrant article, we've spent all of that as well. And now, I guess the next place to go is explain why this happened. So what we found when all the guards changed basically is we knew that there were things that weren't being done that needed to be done. We knew we weren't planning for the future, and we knew that whenever we had we had in this budget money that was coming from, not the reserve fund, but from the fund balance to make this budget work. But we were never taking the money from the fund balance because we were never doing the work that we had to do. So with all that all said, we did some projects in water and in sewer this year that with the capital improvement money that we had in both areas. So I think Ray can probably tell us what we've done, right?
Of course, yeah, started with water.
Yeah, go ahead and do water, yeah.
Where we started on water was the ice pigging of Willie Street. So everybody's got a little understanding of some of the challenges we're seeing on Willie Street and the surrounding streets. The school had a lot of color complaints, odor complaints, and what we found is the Willie Street cross-section that connects Locust and Prospect it's reduced to 6 inch, but it's got a low spot in the road. So that low spot's gathered junk over the years and corroded tremendously. So it's created a much smaller diameter pipe, so we don't get the proper flow through there. So what's happening is you get the school on one side of Willie Street, which is a heavy user, and then you've got 3 or 4 customers on the other side of the culvert. And if the school has a heavy draw, or the first thing in the morning, they'll pull and create a disturbance in the water that's just like a water break or a flushing event, and it creates color, creates disturbance in the pipe. So we've gone, the first line of action for that, when I first started, the Willow Street customers came in my first monthly meeting. They were all around our table and they were pretty upset. I mean, they had, colored bottles of water and said, "Would you drink this?" And I said, "No, I definitely wouldn't." And so the plan that we put in place was to try and take some preventive measures to clean the pipe, which one of the large items on the warrant article was ice pigging. What that was, we had Suez come in and they create an ice slurry, and we forced it through the water main with our water pressure and flushed it into the sewer system, and we did that a couple times, and then up Locust as well. That seemed to help a little bit, but it wasn't probably 3 or 4 months till we started having color complaints again. So the next thing that was pretty large on expending this warrant article was the addition of the flushing hydrant on that low spot. So we put a new hydrant in, tapped into that water line, so now we can alleviate the color at the lowest point, which we never had the ability to do before. And the 2 hydrants are so far apart, you couldn't get enough pressure or enough velocity to really clear the line in that low spot. So that was an investment we made in all understanding that it was a Band-Aid for the time being, because the underlying issue is the pipe past its expected life and it needs to be replaced. But we're talking about a $240,000 replacement just for Willow Street. So these are all measures that we're taking to obviously provide a decent quality of water to the customers there. Flushing when needed to eliminate the color. Whenever I get a call from one of the residents saying that the color's back. The other one that we did, we replaced the hydrant in front of the school. It was a short little stubby hydrant. And the goal there was we were going to put an automated flushing mechanism on the hydrant. But over time we found that flushing there was causing water for the surrounding customers. They were getting some water in their basement. So that kind of went to a halt. Obviously we can't flush there because it doesn't work. I mean, it can't be flooding basements. So the other option would be to flush at the low spot, but it's a wetlands. So we need a special permit to discharge down there. It's really not an option either to discharge on a regular basis. So those were 3 big line items on this warrant article. For the corrosion control issue on, well, the color complaint issue on Willie Street. The other thing that we've been faced with, the other challenge is lead and copper and corrosion control. And around when I first started as well, we had a violation come through for lead and copper for not, well, failing to maintain proper corrosion control per the state requirements. So what that meant was we failed the lead and copper round in 2015. When that happened, we implemented the need to implement a corrosion control system. Part of that was to implement the corrosion control system and also get two successful rounds of lead and copper within the 2-year period. And we failed to do that. So that was right when I took over. So with that being said, we reached out to Wright Pierce and Hoyle and Tanner. We got bids on options for a corrosion control study. Wright Pierce ended up winning that bid, and some of the money, well, I think all the money for that corrosion control study came out of this warrant article. And then when going through that corrosion control study, Wright Pierce found that there was a grant available for asset management. So they applied for us. It's a $40,000 asset management study, and we're responsible for 20 of it. The state picks up the other 20. So some of that cost came out of this as well. So with all that said, we identified that we have obviously a corrosion issue, but we were able to identify what the issues were. And with that information, we updated, or upgraded, I should say, the General Sullivan chemical feed. We've got 4 chemicals at General Sullivan that were essentially just being injected with no checks and no balances. So we were spending money on caustic, hypo, and bicarb. And all 3 of them do different things for different reasons. But hypo, most importantly, is for disinfection. But the other 2 products were for corrosion control, as part of the corrosion control efforts to get the lead and copper back in compliance. So we found that we were injecting these chemicals, but not at the right level. So we've got 2 wells in town. We've got General Sullivan, we've got Porter. And we found that there were drastic differences between the chemistry of the water that were causing, basically self-inflicting our problems on Willie Street. Because we got Porter injecting into the system. Willie Street is a direct shot and it's a low point, and we got General Sullivan water that's typically in the system because it's our workhorse. So the days we would run Porter, we would inject this drastically different chemistry makeup of water into that area. It would create this reaction that now we know was helping cause the issue, outside of the fact that we're past the life expectancy of the pipe. So the efforts up at Porter, there were some, out of this warrant article as well, there were some changes made to the automation and the programming for our SCADA system, so that we can operate in some flexible manners by the state's guidelines. So there was quite a bit of money that was invested up there to do that as well.
Excuse me for a second. To generalize what happened was we really weren't controlling the water the way that we should have from the 2 different wells, the way that the water's met. And because of that, we've got more corrosion in our system than we would have had. Are our pipes old? Yeah. Do we have unlined pipes that need special attention? Yes. But this has been kind of the big growing year for the water chemistry to get the water so that both wells complement each other.
For sure, absolute 1,000%. So we want to have the water from the 2 wells be as close as possible to the chemical makeup. And that, what we're really looking for is pH, alkalinity, and then we put the chlorine into the system, so we want to match the residuals as well, so that we don't have this crazy clash of the titans, essentially, of these 2 different waters creating, different off-gassing or whatever could happen.
Now from this study that we did, we needed to, we've realized that we still have trouble. The system's still old, so we needed to come up with a method to help us, you know, to get us by, because we've got all this old infrastructure. So Ray did some research and we ended up implementing.
I'm not sure what you're after.
Follow me.
Okay, yeah, so that's, you're stepping it, I mean, if we got tired, I'd like to explain it so we can lay the groundwork. I know it's a lot, but going through the warrant articles, there's multiple things happening, right? And there's different reasons why we spent money out of the warrant article at Porter. Corrosion's one of them, but Porter Well's also the well that produces arsenic for our system.
Where's Porter, I'm sorry?
Porter's, it's on the, off of Pine Street, essentially. If you,
Behind the Legion.
behind the
Behind the
Legion.
Legion, the big hill behind the Legion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, so this is the history that basically, your budget came in
We have,
okay.
our
You're
budget came in
this year.
okay, but we did a lot of stuff.
You did a lot of stuff, but you still kept it under budget, so are you laying the groundwork for an explanation of why you're gonna have an
It's
increase?
going,
next year?
it's going through, it's gonna,
Okay.
it's gonna go through the roof, because
Okay.
this was the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
That's
And
the
that's,
problem.
I'm kind of trying to, exactly,
That's
lay
the
the groundwork so you guys have a clear understanding of the state of the system.
Okay,
And we did as much as we could with what we had.
sure.
And the other, you know, the other thing is, for the complexity that we have, other areas have a separate water guy and a separate sewer guy. We've got one guy, and he's doing a great job, but, you know, when we get to the budget part of it, I'm sure people will have questions about that, but I wanted to lay the groundwork so that you know what we're doing.
Okay, that's what we're, budget.
For sure, but it all ties in, obviously, I know it's a lot, but it's complex. We've got two different wells, that's just the water, we're not even talking sewer yet, so, but going back into Porter Well, we identified that the water was drastically different than General Sullivan, but we also identified, through a violation, that we weren't treating for arsenic properly, so, one of the big expenses here as well was to identify and figure out how we could correct that. And we were able to do it fairly inexpensively by purchasing a few pieces of lab equipment, dealing with the state and using them as a huge reference point because they've been involved with our system. We got the most tenure with our system. Cindy Clevens from the state has been involved with Porter since it was put online. So she was able to give me a lot of useful information. With that said, we were able to get out of violation for arsenic, but it's come at an expensive cost to operate the plant. It requires a lot of man hours. You've got to babysit it because it has to be run a specific way. It requires a backwash. We have to test the water that's coming through on the treated side of the filters. Once we start seeing the turbidity change to a certain level, it indicates to us now, we know this, that we need to do backwash so that we clear the filters and we start running again. It might be 5-6 hours into the run, but that way we're not discharging any arsenic.
So something that I wanted to bring up, this whole thing about the two wells. We need to have two wells. We've never really run this well other than just a little bit because no one really figured out how to run the well. So now we figured out how to run the well, we've worked with the state, and now it costs more to run the well. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, the cost per gallon at Porter
It's more expensive to run it, but
right.
we need that water and we can't just keep running one well. We need to run.
Just for a reference point, the cost per gallon at Porter is .0032 cents a gallon. That's just chemicals and that's chemicals and electric and lab. That doesn't take into consideration,
Infrastructure.
doesn't take into consideration labor or maintenance. The cost for General Sullivan is .00071 cents a gallon because it's less complicated of a process to treat the water. So, but in terms of groundwork, that going over the warrant article, it explains why we burnt through $50,000 on a water warrant article, and still tore through our budget to be able to not only get us out of back into compliance with arsenic, but we've learned how to operate the plant effectively. We just had our third quarter of non-detect limits on arsenic, which is great for us, that we know that what we're doing is proven to work. But it came at a cost, and it's gonna continue to come at a cost. So,
Any questions about what we did this year? Do you wanna look at the first page, water, 2019 proposed? So, our old budget was around 300,000, our new budget is about 360,000, and then we have capital improvements of 30,000, 17,000, totaling 47,000. So the operating budget plus a warrant article puts us at 407. It's about a 25% increase. Take a look at sewer. Again, the original was about 300,000, this year's is 377, plus 50. That 50 though is coming from the general fund. We've met with the auditor, and the auditor, we discussed with the auditor what's reasonable to, take from our operating fund and what level we should be at. And about 50 is that's all we've really got that we can put anywhere towards and still be at a comfortable level. So 427, 369 is including the warrant article, but that money won't be coming from rates. So then if you take a look, if you do the math from the first two pages, we're really looking for $784,000 instead of $600,000. So basically it's $187,680 that's gonna have to be made up.
What's the increase over the year? So,
For us to run the plant like it should be run. And that's, we're not closing, we're really trying not to close our eyes, and we're really trying to push things out. We've got a 5-year plan that we've.
Could you run those numbers again? 180.
Oh, I'm sorry, 187, 680 yearly,
Yeah.
going up between the two. And that has to come from rates.
So what does that do to rates?
Spikes at 30 or 40%. I don't know the exact number, but it's,
When will that be known? It has to be part of the budget.
it's, what we've done is we've instituted a 12% increase on the next bill, which is technically this year. And then the next bills will have an increase in it.
We got a grant for a rate study, and we're waiting for the results of the rate study to potentially completely reconfigure how bills are created, minimum amount of usage for a given amount, and then what it costs after that and so forth. So we instituted a relatively small, yet still large increase for right now to get people's attention. It's going out with a letter to explain what's going on. But it's just the first step, because we're gonna wait to see what happens with the rate study, to see how to get the money that the plants need, but with a structure that makes sense too, given the information they give us.
And when,
I have a question. If you're doing it in this year's, have you notified the people that you're increasing?
when's the bill go out?
There's a bill going out with a letter telling them what's going on.
With no notification prior?
It's only gonna be a $10 increase on both sides. But we've gotta do something to handle what we have to do.
So it's going out with 12%. You said it's going out 12%.
But it really is gonna, by the time we're done, it's gonna be 35 or whatever it is we've gotta look at. It's a crazy increase, but we haven't been running the plant properly. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but.
Michelle?
So I've been on this committee a long, long time, and every time there's a change of people, we hear how horrible the people before did, that we heard for years how great they were doing. So I have to say I'm tired of that. But that being said, I don't understand how you can change your budget by what I'm looking at here. I'm surprised Kim didn't beat me to this. By 300,000 and not think to bond it, or do something, because I personally, as a water sewer user,
Part of the,
that's crazy to say it's gonna go up 30-40%.
part of the 5-year plan is gonna be some bonding, but
What part? If you're already at 300, not to go back and forth
Here,
here,
well,
but
here's
we're
the-
at
here's the-
300,000 here.
this is the question. Do you bond the everyday operation or do you bond the projects?
You can't. That's the answer to your question, is that only what's listed in there as warrant articles is potentially bondable, but those don't rise to the level of bonding. We already have bonds that we're still paying off, and we have bonds that we are going to be planning for in the next few years. So bonding is part of the plan, but most of the increase that you're seeing is in operation, in increased chemical use, in increased repairs and maintenance that weren't happening,
Yeah.
and the like of that.
And salary.
And salaries.
And salaries.
And salaries. And, you know, you didn't have people, you didn't have a water person and a sewer person, but yet the state, you know,
The state's been recommending since 2007 that the wastewater treatment facility go to 2.5 employees. It's just the wastewater treatment facility, never mind talking about the water side.
So what's very interesting is we found a report from 2015 that looked at our facilities, and they said that we needed a 10%, 10%, 3%, and 3% increase. That's
Year over year for the next 4 years.
26%.
Yes.
If we had the 26% increase through right now, we'd be about right where we need to be. If you once you compounded it, but nobody had their eyes open, nobody was talking about it, and we were not repairing things. I don't know what.
Just as a follow-up comment, that with a town that has such a small number of people, and I'm one of them, that's using both systems, I just can't imagine
Yeah, you might
how
take a
it can
50,
be
you might take a
supported.
$50 or $60 hit by the time this is done, in a quarter.
Just so I'm clear, so all of this is on the water and sewer, there's no,
No, we don't.
by taxation, so none of this comes out of taxation, so it's all on.
It's on users.
That's why you're quiet.
On users. Yeah.
No, I was
And
figuring
so,
out,
wait,
I'm not on either either.
We have a, we
I'm
have
very
a,
seriously septic.
it's tough to take, and, it's gonna be like $20 a month, that the increase will be probably.
Well, and it's not to keep this belaboring this, but it's not just your single families. I'm fortunate, I have a single family, but people that have multiples, which I have neighbors that are owners, they live there and they rent, they get hit twice regardless of the number of users. So I guess my question, when you talk about a rate study, is there are towns that have that go by usage. If you hit a certain amount, your bill is X versus everybody I talk to that I say what our usage allowed is, they're like, oh my God,
Right,
that's so
exactly.
much, why would
Yes.
you do that? And so is there any discussion about the people that use
There absolutely is.
less water would pay less than the people that have, families of 8 or 10, whatever, yeah.
There absolutely is.
So I'm waiting for the rate study to come back.
Another question, being the homeowner pays water, and then I'm a landlord who pays the utilities for my tenants. So theoretically, my tenants,
Could have to cough up $20 a month.
no, they wouldn't, because I pay the bill.
Well,
Right,
you'll
right.
raise your rent.
And,
You'll have to raise your rent.
do you know, collectively, do you know whether it's a landlord that pays on these rentals in town or not? Because
The bill
my
goes to
tenant,
the owner. The
my-
bill goes to the owner of the property.
that's all you know. You don't know who pays it, I think. I come down and pay.
I know that you pay the bill, because you own the house. You get the bill, you pay the bill, but no, I don't know how it happens internally. But the problem is, we
But-
haven't had an increase in 14 years on one side and 6 or 7 on the other.
Wow.
And we've had our eyes closed, and we haven't staffed properly. We haven't staffed according to how we're supposed to staff.
And because we weren't staffed properly, Porterwell, which is a very complex treatment process with very corrosive chemicals, hasn't been run properly, and we've been self-inflicting issues for years. I mean, that's just it. It is what it is, and it's not passing blame, we've identified the issue, we've
We
corrected
gotta
it,
move forward.
but we have to move forward. We're looking at close to $1 million project to repair Willie Street, Locust, and Prospect. That's the proposed amount, today's money. So to bond that alone, we're talking $56,000 a year. So what we're looking to do is obviously not bite that all off at once, but Willie Street needs to be addressed because you've got the school and you've got 6 tenants or 6 customers that are getting poor quality water. Unfortunately, it's a big chunk of money though, just to replace for 6 or 7 users, but it needs to be done.
No, we
And
have
it's
bonds,
just-
we have bonds that are coming up, and we're trying to,
Offset with the bonds that are gonna be dropping off. Like the Willie Street project with the benzene bond, that drops off in 21, there's about a $2,000 or $3,000 difference, I think, between the two costs. So if we can time it right, by the time engineering and everything happens, and it's probably not gonna be till 21 till the project is at substantial completion, we'll have dropped a bond that could almost cover the cost of Willie Street.
within a couple of $1,000, yeah.
But we still have to identify the issues with Locust and Prospect, because they're both also online cast iron pipes that are from the same age and have been treated with the same water. So right now, the low point on Willie Street showing its issues, but the concern as we replace it, we still have the low point, and those 2 other cast iron pipes that are surrounding it are gonna still send colored water in.
And a cross-section of the pipe shows that about, in a 6-inch pipe, you've got about 1.5 inches on the wall all the way around that's not there anymore. Well, it's all.
Yeah, it's choked down, I mean, it's maybe a 4.5.
So, you know, you're not gonna flush that out, that's not gonna go away, it's 3 months life expectancy. The kind of good news, I guess, is that, if we do those 3 streets, that's half of our unlined material. That's half of our entire system, that's been some of the study work that we've been doing this year.
So those 3 streets consist of more than half of our online cast. The rest of the online cast is in the village. So it's, and that can be done in sections because there's cross sections and
But it's
different
not,
ways to valve it.
but it's not in trouble right now, and probably because it's older and of a better quality material. The quality of the material that was used in the Woolley Street and surrounding area is newer, but it is.
It's known to be a poor cast. That era was a poor cast of cast iron across the board.
Now, the other thing that we've done is we've introduced a polymer
Yeah, so,
into the system.
Right.
Why don't you-
yeah, so the
We're trying to buy as much time as we can, that's the.
We are, so after we got the corrosion control study back and working with the state and implementing changes in our process and producing more consistent water quality coming out of both wells so that we didn't have the clash, we were still fighting the corrosion issue. So there had been studies done, again, the study that I picked up was done back in 2000 and, I can't even quote it right now, it was so long I couldn't believe it. We've used Harcross for our chemicals forever. So the same lady delivers the chemicals that's been around for the last 4 superintendents. And she said, Ray, you know, we put a whole plan together for corrosion control. Harcross makes, it's a polymer blend. Polyorthophosphate is what the chemical is. And what that does is twofold. It's a 50-50 blend. You get the poly and you get the ortho. The poly helps sequester the color, and the ortho lines the pipes so that it doesn't continue to leach into the water. So we implemented that about 4 months ago. We've seen great success. We just successfully passed our last round of lead and copper to put us back into compliance. It's cut our testing back to once a year instead of 3 times a year, and it's cut our testing points in half. So we were doing 24 sites, now it's 10. So the 24 sites cost us $1,000 a cycle to do the lead and copper sampling. So we've cut that back dramatically. But that's, again, a Band-Aid to handle the online cast that we know has already passed its life, but that we're not in a position to replace right now. So.
I go back to my question as the absentee landowner. In my case, if I continue with what I have now, I'm gonna have a tremendous increase in my water bills.
My projection is about $20 a month.
And, but
20.
all the homeowners are gonna have this problem. They're on water, the private homeowners. My question is, and you people should be able to supply us taxpayers, what proportion of the property is rental here, and which proportion is, and theoretically could be paid by the landlord?
Excuse me.
Because the landlords are the ones that are gonna fish like hell about this.
And I'm sorry, but that's really not related to what, to the budget right now. I mean, it's important that I know, but
The rate study's gonna have that type of information in it.
They will have,
No,
that's
no.
why I'm saying we'll get a bunch of information to owners, both private and
For sure.
absentee landlords.
So
It'll be in
keep in
stock.
mind, I use water too, right? I'm in the district, I use the water, and I don't want it to go up, you know, but seeing what's going on and seeing what we have to do, I get it. But then we started looking at, hey, what are the surrounding people using? What are they paying? And that's very interesting. Did you bring that?
Yeah, I've got the studies for the surrounding areas. I think the easiest thing, instead of going through each town, and I'm willing to do it, is just to understand that in terms of a combined water and sewer community, district, community service, whatever we, want to be classified as. In terms of, the whole state, we rack and stack in the bottom 25 percentile in terms of cost per gallon. So we are in the 25 cheapest, percent. I have a hard time saying that. If it makes sense, yeah, so and then when you look at our surrounding towns, Dover, Somersworth, Portsmouth, I did a study, so Dover, Somersworth, Portsmouth, Newmarket, and Rochester, right, so closest to us and then one layer out. They're charging a lot more per gallon than we are.
But they don't pay that sewer. Did you look at the sewer as well?
For sure,
It's
yeah.
combining water.
We are lower than everybody in terms of surrounding for sewer and water.
And then what was really interesting is when you took the first town that was smaller, like us, still bigger than us, but small, they were the most. So for a small community to like properly make water and process sewer, it costs money. But we weren't doing it. That's our problem.
But when you did that, were you doing on that small area, were you doing the amount of people that actually use the system compared to the amount of people?
Yeah,
So what the bill is.
One of the tools that we use is provided by New Hampshire. And it's, you can go to, anybody here at this table can do it. You can go to the site, you can pick a town, you can see exactly where they land in regards to the median affordability, to their cost per gallon for water and sewer. You can separate them from just a water system to just a sewer system.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell you how many in the town
Correct.
are paying that bill.
It does.
It just tells you out of 1,000 residents,
It tell- yeah,
500
so-
are doing it.
680 that use.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Correct, that's what I was saying, when you were
Yeah, so-
saying they were at the top, how many users did
Right.
they have?
Right,
So
but we're taking just dollars and cents and we're saying if our bill is $213 right now, and our bill is gonna go to up $60 more or $80 more in a month, that number, that 213 is in the lower 25% of everybody in the state. Do you see where I'm going with that?
No, because if you're paying $213, it's because you have a lower pool. If you had a larger pool, like some other town may have, that might be smaller, but more people use that pool, then their amount is going to be different than your pool of people.
I'm just saying, what's the bill? The bill's $213. Everybody else has a,
Okay, I get my water in Dover. My water bill for a year is probably $140 a year.
not according to this.
Well, wanna see our bills, that's what we pay.
My bill's,
That might
Well,
go to
it
the
might be
rate
your usage.
structure,
Maybe
the,
your structure.
I use the minimum most of the time.
Yeah.
And in the summer, I go over a little bit, but
And
my
the-
total
and I
is
think the
$100.
min- And I think the minimum in Dover is like 5,000 versus 15,000.
The minimum monthly charge in Dover is $39.94 a month. It's based on this rate study, just for
Dover does
water.
it quarterly.
So they're charging, they're charging
We do it quarterly and.
.007 a gallon. We charge .0055 a gallon.
But I think our base is high.
It is, our base is high.
So
Yes.
There's no doubt we're working on
You seem
identifying
too
the
high.
structure change, but we don't have the information for that right now. We're waiting on it.
Yeah,
But
it's hard to change everything in a year. I mean,
But that would be an important change because the-
Well, we've implemented the rate study, but
And
it
it conserves
takes
water.
time. It to conserve water. The only problem is, think about this, if everybody all of a sudden conserves water, then we have to identify based on our usage, based on history, how to make revenue. So if we change our method, we could not take in enough money to be viable.
Just like reevaluation. Your evaluation may go up when taxes go down, or it goes the other way, still gotta get the money. Can we talk about administrative costs, because I don't have any visibility into the increases from last year to this year?
Yep.
Can you, before the budget workshop, give us the year-over-year comparison? We only have 2019, so we don't have any idea of the increases in your administrative budget.
Okay, so take that first page, the one that we looked at originally, with the strike.
No, I mean a breakdown, so you have a breakdown?
Yeah, we can pull that together.
Yeah, because I was under the impression that everybody was going to follow the
Depending
same,
on, yeah.
the same schedule of doing this.
So we see the same lines as last year, so we can see the differences.
Here's the problem, we started breaking it out the old budget hid everything. You really couldn't see what was there. So what we did is we started breaking it out. You see how there's so many more lines?
Right, so if we
That's how we
had-
wanna move forward.
If we had the same totals,
We don't know what that is because those
all right,
categories.
bottom
were
line,
there.
so
We can get it, we just hadn't
Yeah.
pulled it into the table, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure.
Budget workshop, that'd be great.
And when is that?
January second.
January 2nd. Did we answer the question or no?
Oh, well, you said that you provided, so we could see.
But we don't have those categories. How is-
So I
Sure,
think-
we can, I mean, we can.
So I think the way we're gonna ameliorate this is that we'll have a new line, which is gonna have X number of dollars. It will be zero last year because it's a new line. It'll have money this year, not last year. But there will be other lines that'll have zero this year that had money in it last year. So we're gonna just.
So even
report-
though they don't line up, it's okay?
Because they'll see the bottom line and they can see a little bit better how the money got moved.
I got you.
Well, I mean, for me, I'd like to see, what percentage increases we're seeing in some of these lines year over year. So, I don't know if you can pull that out of your budget.
Keep in mind though, the lines aren't gonna line up, that's what I'm trying to say.
But, so you don't know last year what you paid the
Salary.
commissioners, for example?
Yeah.
Right, we do, yeah, that
Salary,
was
yeah.
the
So
same, but
like,
yes.
and then your personnel line, are these new, are some of them new, are they pre-existing?
We have new, we have new people, we have
So,
more people, yeah.
So just some detail around where we were at last year on some of these line items and where we are this year,
We can do
against
that.
this year, yeah.
And all you're saying is that some of the lines on there won't
They won't
match up,
match.
but the ones like the
Right, it
salary.
could give
Personnel
an,
will.
it'll give an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, because that's basically what Kim's asking about,
Yes.
the personnel.
Yes. Well, if you take
And
a
like
look,
uniforms and, because really, to Michelle, there's some things you can control and some things you can't. So it sounds like there are certainly things in infrastructure that we can't control, but we have to look at other areas.
Right, and understand that we've been running so lean for so long. We took on another full-time employee, and we've also taken on a part-time employee. So, and that's to meet, it's to barely meet the standards that the state's looking for. So,
we have
So how did
something,
you never get called out by the state that you
I-
didn't, you weren't
Because-
meeting these
Producing,
qualifications?
it was coming down the pipeline, I can tell you that right now. If
Isn't it
things
because it's a
continued on.
recommendation, it's recommended?
So it's
not-
recommended, but let me explain though, it's recommended until you fail, right? If you fail and you've been recommended for years to man your staff properly, then you're not gonna have a whole lot of excuses when the state comes down. And you're not producing quality water that we should be sending to our residents to drink. And also, we're discharging poor quality water into the river. Not gonna have an excuse to argue that, so.
Is that a
There's,
staffing issue though?
there's a staffing issue.
It was a staffing issue?
There's part of all of this problem was a staffing issue, absolutely. There wasn't enough people to do the job that was needed.
So whoever said that was running great for the last 3 years, or 5 years, was obviously lying to the budget committee.
No, I'm gonna stand by Michelle on that. I can't agree that that's the case. I mean, we don't, like she said, every time things change, you know, you hear different stories, so I'd rather not just make that
And we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. There's plenty of study that's been done this year to prove what's going on. It doesn't have to turn into a finger pointing game.
right,
We can identify the problems, and bottom line is, we got some major problems that are gonna cost a lot of money to repair. So however we slice it and understand it, doesn't have to be pointing fingers. We need to figure out a way to move forward so that we can sustain our system, and we can also sustain the ability to run the system.
But also, we all sat here for years, and the budget, and I remember this for, I don't know how many years in a row, $301,000, so our budget hasn't changed. It's the same, and I'm going, how is this possible? But it didn't go up for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, it was the same number, and I remember it. It's
I
301,000.
joined the budget committee and I was told, don't worry, I mean, the budget committee, the one with sewer
So,
commission, and I was told, don't worry about it, you don't do that.
yeah. So, I mean,
This guy does it
here's,
and he
here's
says
the
it's
answer,
good,
it seems,
so I
you know,
think it's good.
for whatever reason, so, you know, it's time to pay the piper, and, you know, the bills come due.
That's
So,
what it's sounding like.
you know, so we, you know, we address the issues, we move on, you know, it is what it is.
I agree with
I
that.
don't like it, but.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I don't like sitting here being the person that came in new, and this is what's being presented a year after I showed up, you know? But these are hard, true facts, and the goal is, you know, we just proofed the letter that's gonna go out for all the ratepayers. And the goal is, at our annual meeting, you know, we're gonna have guest speakers there to be able to explain what's going on at another level. So we've got Wright Pierce did our engineering work. They're gonna be there, they're gonna present the corrosion control study, they're also gonna present the corrosion control study and
The lines, the replacing.
the
lines.
2020, no, sorry.
No, the
yeah,
2020.
Yeah, the grant that they just did for the asset management. Cindy Clevens from the state, I'm hoping, I haven't got commitment from her, pretty sure she will. She was such a huge asset in getting past the arsenic issue. She understands it, she can explain. Even though we're a small community, we have a very complex water system, and that's how she worded it to me when I first started, because I was like, you know, I was told, it's just a little water system, it's not a big deal, just show up, and turn the wells on and move on. Really? So, we only require a grade 1 treatment right now, but that's being looked at to be raised because of the complexity of our system. So, I'm hoping to have all the right people there to be able to answer everybody's questions on, not only on rates, but the reasons why we're where we're at. We're not just throwing darts, you know, that these are true hard facts, and
And we have one other really working thing, is we don't have a backup firefighter.
we haven't even got into the sewer side. I mean, all we've talked about right now is water.
Yeah.
There's two
Yeah,
two
two sides to it.
facilities, and understand that they're both in the same type of shape.
So when's the next water bill going out?
We're meter reading as we
Yeah.
speak, so,
End of the month.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
And is the meeting date on that letter?
Yes.
Came down the house today.
It's a tentative date, it hasn't been finalized on the committee yet, but it's going to be the end of March, I think the third Wednesday of March, you said.
We haven't set, we have
set a
to
date, but
set the date.
It's gonna be in March.
So what's the?
You know, I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but this is what we're finding. You know, I think we kicked the bucket too long, and I think that we just have to fix, we don't have a choice, we had to fix what was going on. And I was one of the people that was on the committee when we came in and said, yeah, we've got the same budget, we're fine, I'm happy to tell you that. But all of the committee didn't work on the budget.
Are there other questions, or there's more to be presented? Are you planning to present the same detail on sewer now, or are we pretty much?
We can tell you what we have to
You've got the
do.
total number, right? I mean, the number that was presented is the total number for both.
Right.
We can definitely go through some issues with sewer, if you guys wanna hear it right now. I would love to share them with you.
Can you email us?
I could put an email together for you
Excellent,
guys, for
perfect.
sure. I mean, the letter that we just put together highlights a lot of the challenges that we face this year, and it touches on challenges that are coming up.
I want to thank Ray because what he's done is, what he brought to the table is he's a licensed electrician. And these water upgrades would have been ridiculously costly if we didn't have him to jump in and not just be the superintendent, but to do all these, to be part of all these in-house projects that we've done. We've saved a lot of money, and like maybe you said, we could put together exactly how much money we've spent and we've saved versus
What you would have spent.
what we would have spent, but it's been, it's really been a running show because, we knew that we didn't have the instrumentation in the condition it needed to be, nor did we have the right instrumentation. So, in the water side. Now, on the sewer side, we're in kind of a similar situation. We have a pump valley that each pump costs about $15,000. It's antiquated equipment. Some of it goes back 30 years.
20 anyway, I mean,
20 anyway.
yeah, the one pump goes back a good 20 years.
And we've put some money into these pumps this year, high money into these, money and time, maintenance-wise. So these pumps are $15,000 to replace. There's 3 of them, it's about $45,000 if everything hits the fan. What Ray is proposing with a little bit of help from the engineering is he feels that he can rebuild the entire pump galley with new pumps and equipment, pumps that are less money, more user-friendly, more easier to repair, and he's feeling that we can do that for the $50,000 instead of 45 to just kind of.
Pumps. And the other big part of the problem in that pump galley, not only the pump's an issue, because there's 3 different pumps, so we don't have one pump that's the same, so you gotta stock and have backups for each one of those pumps, that gets expensive. But that pump galley is kind of like the heartbeat of the plant, it's the easiest way to understand it. And there's flow meters that are down there that report back to my automation system that tell me that things are running in the capacity that I needed to operate the wastewater treatment facility correctly. What I identified at the beginning is, I was making changes, just wasn't seeing things react the way they were supposed to, and come to find out, the flow meters, the flow meters weren't reading accurately, so it's telling me 25 gallons a minute, but it's putting 55, 60 gallons a minute out. Doesn't sound like a lot, but for a very small plant, it can upset the plant really quickly. So, it kind of just drills down to how many issues are just in the pump galley, and then we could, in March, there's gonna be a whole demonstration and conversation of what's going on. I can put an email together if you guys would like, listing some items, or all the items that are gonna be needed need addressing in the future.
We've also had a safety issue there too. The way it's set up is, well, it bought somebody 3 stitches in 2017.
No, actually, it was Staples. Yeah,
Staples,
she got Staples,
yeah,
but.
We get another hour.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
So just for clarification, so we're looking at
We do town differently.
47,000 in the warrant article, is that right? And then
47 in warrant,
And
yeah,
then about 190 in increased fees.
187.
Okay, that's all I got.
Now, hold on, and then there's another warrant,
Of 50, that's coming from the general fund.
yeah, pump galley system upgrade, that's
Oh,
gonna be,
right.
that's gonna be a
That
warrant
doesn't
article
affect
too.
it, then that's.
That doesn't affect.
That doesn't affect the budget.
Does not affect the budget.
Thank you.
Are we, got any more questions for Water and Sewer? Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
I did, yeah, so that's my background. I came out of Dover, that's what got me in the industry. He hired me as his electrician, and then I got paid for the wastewater side. 7 years out was when I took this position. I achieved my grade 4 in the wastewater. I had no water experience, so when I took the job, it was, what's that?
Welcome, Ronald.
Yeah, well, it's all right, we're getting through it, but it was, it shows some quick challenges. Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Denise.
Are we going forward, or we're gonna try to reschedule?
I don't think we have really an option for this
All right.
schedule, so I think we fuck it up and.
All right, so we're gonna start on page 9, and the decreases in supervisors and moderators is due to less elections. Admin support, changes to, we're recommending a change that we have a full-time town administrator and add a part-time bookkeeper.
Page 9?
Page 1.
Yeah, so-
It's 9 o'clock, I was just thinking 9 o'clock.
One of 9.
Sorry.
Sure.
Page 1.
Yeah, I can throw a paper on there.
Page 1.
So sorry, I didn't hear anything you said because I was looking for
All right,
page 9.
so all of the election items, you're gonna see reductions because we're going from 4 elections down to 1. So they're throughout the budget. So if you see a negative, it's just because we're less elections.
Do you have more of those?
Yep.
2, please?
2.
Could you give me a
I only have
breakdown
1.
for the
All right, we'll share.
administrative support?
I thought I gave you one, Frank.
What page are we on?
1.
1. What?
Could you give me a breakdown of the administrative support position?
Yeah, the recommendation is that we will be going forward with a full-time town administrator and a part-time bookkeeper.
Yes, and how much?
Do you have an
Do you have
amount for
numbers?
each one? A recommended amount?
What was the bookkeeper's hourly? 16?
The bookkeeper, I believe, was budgeted at 16
16
hours a
20
week,
hours.
20 hours a week.
Yeah.
The
And
town
then
administrator was budgeted for 60
yeah.
for the year, and then it also includes the minute taker
60.
position.
60?
And it also, okay, it also includes the select board's
Minute taker.
minute taker.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you say those numbers again?
Yeah, $60,000 for the town administrator,
Okay.
$16 an hour for the bookkeeper at 20 hours a week. And I don't know what my salary is, but it's for their minute taker at the town selectmen's office.
So that's what she would be doing, is just doing the minutes now?
Who?
Salme?
That's all she does now.
Oh, she was working, I thought she was.
She does
Oh.
occasionally, she does work maybe 3 hours a week or so in my office. She typically puts in,
Oh, she does like the mail.
yeah,
that kind
you
of
know,
stuff,
it's approximately 3 hours or so a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the town administrator for 60,000.
Yep,
Is that for a year?
salary, yeah.
But he or she will only be there for 9 months, because it will be after the election, so it'll probably be
Well, it's
before.
year over year, but it's.
Yeah, but you're only gonna be budgeted 45 for this year.
Well, we have someone who's filling in the shoes right now, so her hours were brought up to full-time.
Yes, I know that,
Okay.
but I would say that you should be at 45, plus Caroline's hours times 2% for the first 3 months.
Say that one more time?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got 60,000 in the budget for position. It's only gonna be for 9 months. So that should be 45. But you're still gonna have Caroline filling in for 3 months with a 2% raise, is what I'm saying.
He's saying that it
Whatever her
would not
salary.
take effect until
It won't
after
take
the
effect
election.
until April.
But that's
Well, it's
really
the
a
Board of
board
Selectmen's,
decision.
it's Board of Selectmen's decision whether or not we start it immediately, or, we don't need approval of it, we only need the approval of the wages. We can put someone in that position and change the title.
Are you gonna have a hiring committee?
I don't know, I haven't talked about it. I don't know.
'Cause Suzanne was always a big advocate for committees like that.
Well, she's not on the board anymore, so I'm not sure, I have to talk to the other two. I don't know.
So have you, kind of evaluated other towns to know that that's the going rate for administrators?
That was created out of in the context of the ad hoc town manager committee report that was devised, which has quite a bit of contextual information with, I think there were 10 other communities in our population and valuation size. So that's on the website, and it has a lot of information which precipitated all this.
Right.
So yes, it is in the low to moderate range for that position for a town our size.
So what is your plan
What's my plan for,
for hiring that position?
our plan is that we're gonna go forward for it. That's all I know at this moment, our salaries for this. Projected, yes.
And this is, when you said a full-time position, so the person is full-time, meaning 40 hours.
That's the intent, is set 40 hours, but they changed it Monday night to be a salary
Be
position
salary.
But with
versus
the,
hourly.
yeah, but with a salaried position, there's still an expectation of
The
what would
expectation
be.
is 40.
And you'll be posting for that position?
It has to get through the process first, I'm
No,
assuming it will be
You
up,
will-
it will be posted.
You need somebody, I know that, there's
Yeah.
no problem there.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that point,
Yeah.
that's all.
We haven't talked about how it's going to go through the process of hiring, we just talked about getting it on the budget to go forward with the position.
Do you have a job description for it?
Yes.
Excellent.
You're in the works,
Yeah, Mike put one
Mike's-
out,
yeah.
and it's supposed to be.
12 steps.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be a public record. From what the select board meeting had said, once it had all the corrections, it's supposed to come to everybody so that everybody knows.
Right.
What the requirements for the position are.
Yep. Okay, so, budget committee secretary, if we ever can find one, 2%.
So, I'm sorry, wait, I have a question. So, so built into this, what is, this is how many positions now
The
currently?
admin support person,
Yeah.
it's some A's, and it's going to be the town administrator, and it's going to be the bookkeeper.
So it's 2 positions currently going to 3.
Right.
So you're seeing it in 2 different lines in the 18 budget, and it's getting combined into one line in the 19 budget.
But didn't we just decouple that whole thing in the last budget? Like we broke it out so we would be able to see the different positions? So why are we bundling it all back up again so we don't have any visibility into it? So I have no idea this year what like Carolyn's increases and Salome's increases and any of that.
I'll see if it can be extended.
So what is the?
It was across the board, 2%.
2%. Thank you.
All right, the payroll taxes at 226, that's because the payroll taxes last year were under budgeted. Most of you are aware of that issue. There's a decrease in mileage. The photocopying went up 31%. We have now new commitments due to the MS4 stormwater, which we will be having to do a lot of printing and a lot of mailing. So you'll
Question?
see that down further too, yes.
Okay, your conference and dues, you've been budgeting 500, but you've been spending more every year, and you're down 500 again. Is that gonna be enough money?
I'm not sure, what is the conference and dues, Caroline?
Conferences and dues are, that's been hit particularly lately because of turnover at the transfer station, and it will continue to receive activity for that reason, which wasn't spent as much before. But essentially, they have annual trainings at $50 a person annually. There's the annual municipal association conference that I go to, which is $150. that's the basic stuff. Then there was some extra this year because we hired Ed, and Ed wanted to he did a couple of recycling-related workshops. So I don't know whether those would continue or not. There is ongoing training for him that doesn't, meetings with a nonprofit that manages recyclables for us that does not have a cost associated to it. So for the most part, I think we'll be fine with $500.
So previously, we didn't have conference and dues for the sanitation departments, and now I'm seeing that we do have it in this year.
Is it
So
in the
it
line
used
as
to come
well?
out of the executive line, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're trying to move it back into the department, except this would be.
I'm not sure that it actually did get moved. You can check that. I remember we talked about it. I don't recall whether it got moved.
Yes,
Okay, so there you go. Okay, thank you.
On the professional services line, you only spent, as of Q3 or to date, $1,700. What's the other $24,000 slated for?
Professional
Oh, we
services
don't
and
have any
legals
lines.
are together, you have to.
There's no numbers on them.
Yes.
They combined them.
They combined.
There's been a lot of combining of lines. So it used to be that engineering and legal were separate lines, and now they've been combined into professional services.
Didn't we just go through this whole process of splitting everything out? We're putting it all back
So,
together
so
again?
it changes according to who's on the board. You know,
Right.
Suzanne really, like, she created the full-time salary in the police department line because it creates a lot of, it's kind of efficient to look at one thing at a time and then create reports when you want to see a report on what the individual salaries are. It was an effort to make things more concise and congruent between departments. But then you can have a different select board that feels differently, or a different budget committee that requests something different, so it's kind of always in flux.
Okay, so what is coming out of professional services for this next coming year?
There's a number of compliance, so legal is a number of compliance issues. The cable franchise agreement is still under review. And to get a couple of policies through legal. Legal is pretty basic. Professional services is engineering, just in case there's a need for engineering.
Do we know what those were before? So did you sum those up before too? Like, okay, so.
I think in 17 they were broken out. I'm not sure, you can, you know, I'm not looking at your sheet, I think it.
And I guess for my 2 cents, I really think, I don't wanna see us go back to lumping everything together. I think we need to see it stay broken out. So if that's a message that can get back to the select board or whatever. You know, we, as Kim said, we went through this before, you know, trying to separate everything, and, you know, it's a lot easier to see
It's a lot easier to follow.
and follow and know what goes for what, rather than, you know, all lumped together. So my 2 cents on that.
I won't ask as many questions.
Questions are good, because you're not the only one with questions, and then everybody can benefit from the answer.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with Bill. I think it would be a lot better off to have the individual lines like it used to be.
Okay, so IT, hardware, software, and services, we are doing some upgrading on our computers in the office. We're also gonna, we're gonna move the Wi-Fi from downstairs up to here to
Yes,
get better service
try
up
to
on this
improve
floor.
that, yes.
We're gonna try to do that as well.
What does that mean for them downstairs?
No,
Nothing, because it's our Wi-Fi.
It's our
Oh,
Wi-Fi,
it's not
yes,
theirs.
so it's gonna only help us and not at
Yeah.
all affect them.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, on page 2.
Hold it, contingency,
Yeah,
why did you go up in that?
that's based on your
Slush fund.
So,
total.
it was always intended to, well, in more recent years, the idea was that it's 1% of the previous operating budget. This select board actually took that figure and decided it was more than they thought was probably necessary. So I think it got reduced from 1% down to a smaller percentage. But it's just for the inevitable something that happens.
And what are our reimbursable expenses? I see a $4,700 decrease, which I like, but what exactly is that?
That has to do with checks that bounce that ultimately get repaid, or insurance claims that get paid out and ultimately get reimbursed, or FEMA incident, FEMA's actually a separate line. But it's just various expenses that will ultimately get repaid, just to separate them out and recognize that there's offsetting revenue. So although it's in an expenditure budget, it's not taxation, because you're always getting it back.
So we see it revenue on the other side.
Like when we had.
Yeah.
In a way, yes.
I just have a quick question. I know we had asked it for the previous. On the contingency, you show that you haven't spent any of the money yet. You haven't spent the 17,546.
No, that's not true. What happens is that whatever you spend money on belongs in a category that already exists. So what happens is that as the year goes on, the select board reallocates budget dollars to reflect where you've actually spent it. So it got moved to a vehicle repair and maintenance line or a utility line or something like that too, so that you can track where the expenses actually happen, so that you can evaluate whether or not that was a reasonable budget amount for that line. So yes, it is expended.
Okay,
So for
because
example-
the reason why I ask is maybe something in the little notes line would say, we have that $17,000, we could spend it too.
We have lots of aspirations for better reporting, yes.
Did you have a question?
Would an example be in the, for instance, the payroll taxes that were reallocated once we realized it was more money? That would come out of that 1%
Yes.
eventually?
Yes, for example, that's exactly what happened. We signed up for Group 1 retirement, and I don't know if this group is aware of that the non-police full-time employees were given Group 1 retirement. It was not transparent at the time, despite due diligence, that apparently Group 1 employees are subject to Social Security withholdings, whereas police and fire are not. So it was set up incorrectly. We didn't properly budget for payroll taxes, so contingency money got moved over to cover that when we figured it out.
Do you have a total figure of what that was?
It's actually in 2017 funds. It didn't affect 2018, except to say the expense, so we've paid for it in 2018, but we were aware of it in 17. So so it's in the auditor's report that amount of money got moved back into 17 funds. But it's about $12,000.
Because it was transfer station, police.
It was, no, so police are police, they're Group 2. It was me and highway, and then, for a short time, the second highway person.
Yeah.
So can I just ask a follow-up? So Caroline, you said that it shows up as 0 in contingency because it's actually gonna reflect in the line it was spent, which makes perfect sense. But where would that 12,000 show? Because I don't see anywhere.
So it's gonna show up as, so if I understand you correctly, so payroll taxes are in the department in which they're spent. So my payroll taxes come out of executive payroll taxes. It may not look overexpended because the budget money may or may not in your report have been moved over to cover it. It also may not look extraordinary because it's what you would expect if you do the math for the payroll taxes to be. But it was under budgeted originally, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Okay, so looking at the figure would look normal, but
Correct.
the money was not earmarked for
Right,
that.
exactly.
But wouldn't I see that in the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, wouldn't you see an over expenditure, say it was in, I don't know, postage? You would see an over expenditure in postage if it was budgeted for $200 and we spent $300, that would be $100 from contingency that went.
So I think
Okay,
you do see it in your report in that you have 2 center pink lines or 2 center gray lines. There's what was budgeted in 2018 and then what the rebudgeted
Look
amount.
at the payroll taxes executive, it was 2250 that was approved on 18, revised budget is 4848.
Right, that's it, that's
Okay.
where it
So that's where
really,
it's doubling,
when
so
they
we're gonna see
change,
that new
when you
spot.
change
Okay.
to a revised budget, we really don't know unless we look and say, oh, it came out of here, where anything came. I personally would rather see that line overspent and with a notation on contingency saying this is where it came from, than to revise a budget halfway through a process so that we don't know if it was really over budgeted that much or where money keeps getting moved around.
So the report
show
that,
the budget though, I mean, she shows the
Yeah,
original
on
appropriation
that one it
revised.
does, yes.
Oh, but it didn't before. Oh, okay.
What do you mean it didn't before?
No, on some of the other things that I don't see, we, like she said, she still can't find the whole 12,000.
I think all she's saying is a note that says, you know, there was a $12,000 error, it was paid out of the 17, which would just make it easier so nobody's trying to figure it out, wasting time.
Thank you.
All right,
But I get it, thank you.
all right, so, contract salary, again, we're recommending,
Well, I still have a
Across the
question
board.
on his first page. I don't understand the full impact. I was a new position on this manager. I wanna see the full impact of that in terms of retirement, social security, health insurance and so forth. I don't see it there. If you've got 60,000 one in there, then am I putting those, he's gonna be full-time for health insurance?
or
so,
she,
so all of the, so the health insurance is combined, for privacy reasons, but it is budgeted for everything that we expect to have happen. And while that salary line is a combined line, the retirement is calculated on the one full-time position in that combined line. So what you're seeing for budget numbers for next year.
Well, what I'm saying, it looks to me like it's $100,000. If you say you're gonna put 60,000 in, and then you take all these fringe benefits and so forth, you just essentially double it.
Right.
When it's all said and done, regardless which line you're trying to hide it in for, which I don't agree with legally, but the lawyers say you gotta do stuff like that.
Right, did you calculate in the potential increase in health insurance as well? Because that would be, I mean, that's a variable.
The health insurance, if you say he's gonna work full-time for us, you're gonna pay full health insurance on that person. That alone gets between $25,000 and $30,000.
But that position already has,
It doesn't have anything.
no, that position as it sits right now is full-time, and that position is already getting the health benefits.
Who is?
Before the admin support personnel.
I am now full-time and I have healthcare. I am now full-time and I have healthcare.
You're saying you're not gonna be at all there then?
No.
You're still gonna be there getting health
No,
insurance or
it's
not?
going to be a different
See,
position.
that's a problem. The position has been explained well enough for me to understand what you're changing around and so forth. I wanna know the net impact on the budget. You know, as you had it this year, and then next year, I wanna know how much addition is gonna be required. Whether you lump the three together or whatever, but you got the fringe benefits and so forth, which are different for the new position compared to what you're getting, or you're still gonna be there, you're saying, then you're getting others, but there's not enough information here to really make it clear.
The fringe benefits are staying the same. They are budgeted, the fringe benefits are budgeted to be the same. It's all subject to change and the select board can move
The
things.
fringe benefits are not staying the same if you put a manager in there.
It's subject to retirement, as is the current position. It's subject to health care, as is the current position. So all that is
And
budgeted,
health insurance and so forth.
correct. And so that's not budgeted to change.
Well, it's all budgeted to change because it's new money.
So you're not adding a new full-time position.
Correct.
It's either going to be
So there's
Caroline
already
or
going to
somebody
be-
else.
You're not gonna
We're
pay,
basically
increasing it with a different title,
Well, we are adding a new position.
part-time.
Writing a half-time position.
Which is not subject to retirement or health care or
Are we not adding
payroll
a town
taxes.
manager at $60,000,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That-
Which is combined in a
already
few
being-
positions, right?
No.
No,
But
No,
can I
it's
just
new.
say
I'm
that it
confused.
is,
If
it
we
is
never had a town
reflected.
manager and we're adding a town manager, how are we not adding a position, I guess?
It's
It's a
either
replacement.
Caroline or somebody else.
It's a replacement position of what we
Correct.
currently have.
We have a
Yes.
town manager?
No,
It's a
no,
replacement position of what we
Replace the
currently
position
have,
Caroline's
title change.
previously in.
Title change.
It
But
may-
Right
Right,
now
but she
we
was never
have-
full-time, right?
This
For
year.
how long?
This
Um,
year.
This year.
So it's a new
Last year.
position this year?
Last year you were
The-
full-time too.
32 hours with
Last
full-time.
Well, you're considered, you were considered, you're just,
Yes.
you're going 40.
She went
Right.
40 hours.
You-
Oh, right, I was 32, okay.
She
so
was 32, she was considered full-time.
She already gets the
Yeah,
healthcare.
she already gets healthcare, and all of it that needs to go with a
budgeted.
full-time employee.
So basically,
So
we're adding a
probably,
half-time
the
employee that
expectation
doesn't
is
need all
that
the
Caroline is gonna be town administrator, so it's not a new position.
Or I
That's what
won't
the-
be, and it will be somebody else, and it's budgeted for that same thing.
Right, and
Right.
then, but then, so your
But, yeah,
position will go.
but last year there was a town administrator that
No,
was.
no.
We've never had
Okay,
an
I know, I understand, so I guess I'm pretty confused.
No,
So-
no,
No.
What's happening is the position she's in right now is going to change to a position of a town
I
administrator.
understand that, but we never had, her position was never full-time, right?
Yes, it was. 32
Just-
hours is full-time.
32 hours is full-time since when?
Yeah.
In terms of getting benefits.
For benefits.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll shut up for right now,
That's
but I'm a
exactly
little
why.
confused about a few
No,
things.
Yeah.
It's good to ask.
I'll think about it and reorganize it.
Michelle?
Now, an easier way to explain it is, she was 32 hours, full-time.
Now
And
she's 40 hours.
now she's
full-time.
40 hours because of the workload.
Right.
The select board gave her extra hours that were not in the approved.
But that didn't change benefits, it did
No, no.
Oh, I
change
understand
business
that,
retirement.
that's asking that, I'm not asking that.
Went from 32 to 40.
Right. Okay.
So the only increase, so that budget line of that combined salary line reflects an increase of 20 hours of additional
Part-time.
admin support, and
Yeah.
it's part-time.
Part-time.
What's gonna happen is some of the things that you've been doing is gonna be shifted to this new person who's gonna come in at 20 hours. So that you will be freed up to do other administrative things that the select board.
Yeah,
But I
I'm still a
believe-
little confused about that,
But I believe we already have someone that they've already hired for 20 hours
Yeah.
a week as a
It's only
temporary,
ten.
as a bookkeeper.
As a temp.
It's a tempo, it wasn't
And it's 10
in
hours.
last year's budget.
Oh, is it
I'm saying,
10
my
hours
God,
now?
Yeah,
apples and
because of the
oranges.
amount, the hours,
Confusing as hell.
the
So,
salary.
which is not actually in this budget, Paul, it's,
Oh,
okay.
I got it, but just,
So the one variable.
to me, it sounds like we're adding 20 hours, 8 hours, right? Because we're adding a part-time now for 20 hours and we're upping her hours 8, so it's 28 hours right now we're already adding, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Town warrants that much extra? I mean,
I,
Caroline's position is what? The town administrator, but her position was,
She's the
Basi-
assistant
I'm
to
the
the select board
administrative
right now.
assistant to the select board,
then that's 32
bookkeeper,
hours?
and the welfare.
40
Yes.
hours a week?
You know what the difference is, Paul, is that you don't have Suzanne working 40 hours, 50 hours a week.
Exactly.
And that's why when other people are asking the select board, they say no, because they don't wanna work 20 to 40 hours a
And
week.
this is why you're not getting the level of information that you want.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question too,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the whole picture.
Yeah, because the original select board description is the overseer of the poor. So, that, in the beginning time, that was the select board's domain.
We don't wanna be at the 12
The
o'clock.
one variable in this
Let's get going on
equation
the budget.
is if the position isn't Caroline's and it becomes somebody else's, we may see an increased cost in health insurance. Right.
Because right now, this is tailored to her, and it shows what, this 81,640 is what it would be if she stood into that spot. Where's the 20?
Or somebody else with the same
Right,
healthcare
right.
level.
Right, but, which is great. Now, what about the 20 hours a week? Where's that? The other person, the 20 hours a week, that's gonna take what her old position was originally titled, but not not the level
It's
she
in that
had.
combined
new
line.
position.
It's in that
It's in that
combined.
It's in the-
81,000.
Oh, it is?
81, yeah.
Okay,
Take 60,000 out of it, and that's what the other one would get.
No, because you gotta take,
You
you
gotta
gotta
meditate
take,
her
cellmate
next
out of
year.
there too.
16,640, 52 weeks at $320 a week.
so her pension and all that stuff must be on a different line, yeah?
Retirement is a separate line.
Okay.
But you're saying you're not gonna pay retirement on a
Yeah, it's
half-time
like,
person?
it's like.
No,
$6,000.
they're doing her though on that line.
It's $6,765 for retirement.
Yeah, it's a couple
on that
lines down.
position.
Okay.
Michelle?
I gave up, I'm good. Forgot we were gonna ask. I just had to work it.
What if you get this figure for 6,000 or whatever?
Sounds good. We're willing.
Are we moving on?
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
You
All
have
right.
not turned on, and I'll tell you,
Can we
I'll
move
be
on to
raising a
financial
lot of hell
administration?
about this.
Not yet.
So you
Don't
wanna
worry,
hear-
Oh, yeah.
don't look at me yet, I didn't do it.
Well, I'm telling you.
All right.
This is not acceptable. The way you explained it.
Are you talking to me? I didn't explain.
Collectively, I'm talking to all of us. That's what-
Talk to the
and
people
when we
that
walk out of here,
explained
we
it.
all accept responsibility. And if you didn't ask any questions about it, well, then you fully understand it. I wish you would explain it to me.
We have another debate session, it's called the budget workshop, so we can debate it some more.
Okay, good.
This is the
Yeah.
That's
presentation.
January 2nd.
I set it up.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
All right, good questions.
All right, can we move on to the
Yes.
Yes,
elections
move on.
registration? Okay, again, our recommendation is 2%.
Oh, wait a second, I got back up. Okay, the tax collector,
Pay attention, let's get going, please.
oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, but the tax collector, the fall
Wait,
budget,
Wait a minute, she's still,
She's still on page
yeah,
one.
you jumped ahead, but
I
let's do
thought she was
that.
on page 2.
Let's just go
No,
to
I'm
that.
trying to
Sorry.
get there.
Let's go to finance and administration.
So we'll go to page 2, right?
So we're on page 2. Again, per stipend got reduced based on elections. Ballots, let me see. The programming of the
We're
printing
good on all
ballots,
that.
all of that. I guess we're gonna remove the training and the voting booths first. I heard of it tonight, so just to tell you, so she said she wants it gone, we'll remove it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted a clarification from her to be sure.
The only issue I would have with that is, I was a little concerned, she said, you know, the state mandates training, but I'm not gonna go.
But we can't tell her what to do.
Okay.
She's an elected official.
But if, okay,
And
then I
she's
think,
followed by RSA.
then I think we need to make the point, that, I mean, what is the consequences if she doesn't take the training?
I'll have to look into
Okay,
that, because
'cause
that's the
you know,
first I've
real
heard
quick,
this, so
I think we should,
shocked.
because
Lot
if
of
she's not
information.
qualified to be the town clerk, then what do we do then? So I understand her point, that it might be a waste of time, but I'm concerned that,
But
you
we
know.
probably won't remove it, it's a
Yeah,
good
maybe
point,
we
we probably
shouldn't
won't
remove
remove it,
that
it
item.
shows that we put the money there and we,
Yeah.
Okay.
but I think we need to have that conversation about the liability of not having a qualified person.
Yeah.
If they're not taking this
Well, that-
required seminars. or whatever.
Correct, and that would be a personnel thing between the select board and.
Okay.
So,
Rolling on.
but I guess we will take out the voting booth.
No, that's it's a good point, though.
Yeah. Okay, financial administration treasurer, no change.
I got a
That's an
question on
elected
treasurer.
official.
Yeah, we never had that line before.
No, not the treasurer, I know that, the tax collector.
I'm getting there, Charlie, did you
Charlie, will
just,
you wait?
I
Listen,
thought she said she was,
I said treasurer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Is that
going next.
new?
Treasurer? That's Vern.
no, that's Vern.
No, but I've never seen that line item before.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it had, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
It was made last year.
Was it buried in another line?
No.
I don't think so.
No, it's been 26.
All right, tax collector, Charlie.
Okay, got a small problem with the default budget, should be $402 less.
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't be the same as what you're proposing because you
So,
have to go revert
You
back.
have to go back to 18, is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to have that fixed.
Yep.
So it should be 20087.
Mhm.
Yes.
20087. Okay, we'll get that fixed.
And then the payroll taxes would be the same.
Would be your, oh yeah, you'd have to do that one too.
Mhm.
Okay. Which is
$30.
Yeah.
Audit, going across the same, reevaluation, all staying the same. Personnel administration, health insurance, the select board has, decided to change the plan, to the AB 20, which is a savings for the town to, that would be for everyone who has insurance.
If it's a savings, how come it's a $40,000 increase? What's the savings? What is the
Well,
savings, I should
The
say?
plan went up, the existing plan went up 10.5%, so the
Mhm.
savings is the not 10.5%.
Right.
But it's also still going up because there were plan changes, increased
True plan changes.
enrollment. Singles going to two-family going to family, things like that.
Right.
So what would it have been if we stayed in the same plan?
It was like $68,000 of an increase.
Okay. How many people on that plan?
What's after two?
They're
Three?
budgeted for 8.
8, yeah. Any other questions on that page? All right, go to page 3. Paycheck services went up 2%. All others are all set. Planning and zoning,
Before we leave there,
okay,
there's a math error.
okay.
Okay, you say that the total for that section proposed change is 1529. But if you add up all the numbers, the 39,000 and all that, comes up to 40,887.
All right.
What section are you in?
We're in the bottom underneath the
Personnel.
personnel administration.
Oh, yeah, you don't have the 39.
What's the number,
39,345 in that calculation.
What's the
It's
proposal?
actually 40,000 something.
Is
I
40,887.
think it's just you're missing the
No, no.
health insurance one.
Yeah, I don't think it mattered at the bottom.
At the bottom,
It's
you've
just
got the right
The
number.
bottom came out pretty good.
So
It's just-
where's the error then? I'm confused.
Oh, just at the department level?
The department level, the end
Personnel
of your funding.
administration.
At the end of your personnel administration.
On
Yeah.
the 2019 proposed change,
And the proposed-
that number of 1529 should be whatever. It looks like you just didn't add in the
Yeah,
39,345.
Yeah, it looks like you
See,
did
this is-
add in the health insurance.
So this is where and on the.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But
see,
it all
on this
came out-
page, you got
It all came out in the wash.
39.
What's the percentage?
But the bottom line came out pretty good.
All right,
Is it really
thank you.
27%
No
increase?
problem.
Yes.
Okay,
Increase,
the planning and zoning secretary, it was, the hourly rate went up, and it was because the person isn't just being the secretary, it's also doing postings and notifications as required for the position, as in sending out notices about meetings with the planning board and meetings with the zoning board, so it was an increase of it by the hour instead of 2%.
How many hours?
I can't answer that.
It
Yeah.
varies depending on the projects, but it's about 5 hours per meeting. But it varies according to whether or not there's a notice of decision to send out and how many certified mail, things like that. Bless you.
Bless you.
There's another math error.
There is, actually that percentage for the personal adjustment isn't right either, it should be like 31% based on the revised budget and the new budget.
Can you repeat that line? I'm sorry.
So the bottom line for personnel administration, I think the percentage, if you're doing percentage on the revised budget,
I think that percentage comes out good to that number. The numbers were good, it just wasn't in there.
All right, I think what we'll just say is we're
Yeah.
gonna check all
We'll
of our
just check the whole thing,
calculations, and
yes,
every one
yes.
of them, and make sure that we'll send a revised copy when she does that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, government buildings?
No, under planning and zone reimbursement services, $5,000.
Mm-hmm,
You didn't carry that over.
that's the difference.
So instead of 18, it should be 5,018.
oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah, because there's no,
Yep.
it wasn't in there before. Okay,
No problem.
all right. Are we good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Good.
Government buildings, janitor wages up 2%. Supplies, the town hall supplies, we have mats in there, but we also have allocated $1,000 to purchase new chairs for this room here and get rid of these burgundy ones.
can all this stuff go to the new building if it gets voted on?
Can all this stuff go to what?
The new furniture go to the new town hall?
What new town?
If it gets.
If,
Well, yeah, I mean, you mean if we buy it, will it
Yeah.
go, it will go,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's new, I mean, we probably aren't gonna wanna take these
No, no, no.
wearable
Yeah.
chairs, but yes, yes.
I know, I like it.
Just because like we did all of these dollars for,
They
you
can't
know,
clean them, is what they're saying.
soft costs for that building.
But yeah,
We're not gonna just like leave stuff behind that we buy this year.
oh, absolutely, no. This was a suggestion made by the custodian, so we agreed to, they're the plastic chairs that can be easily wiped and sanitized and cleaned, and you won't have any more of this upholstery.
What is that note mean, half monthly, half bi-weekly?
That refers to the mats in the hallway, and they're also downstairs. That for a certain time of the year, they will be replaced monthly, and then for the other part of the year, every other week. It keeps costs down to do it less frequently, but in the winter, it requires more of a turnover because of salt buildup.
It's cleaning, not replacing.
Correct,
Yeah.
it's the uniform company,
Yeah.
you rent them and they swap them out however often you want in the change. And the cost is associated with how frequently you do that.
Are we gonna have the same problem if we do damage to the mats that we have with the uniforms?
It's all in the same account, so
Yeah.
I will check on that, but I
Yeah.
believe it will carry on all the things in the accounts, thank you.
Let's verify that. But I would say yes, if it got damaged here on us, we would have to pay for it. Sewer and water on all of the town buildings, clearly we have not been advised of a price increase yet, so.
Have to-
However, we'll probably
Have to look into that.
triple it or something, I don't know.